beautiful time
you stop that
of
shit.
the year.
It's
December 1st, motherfucker.
And that's what it is that the moment December 1st comes around that
You start singing Christmas music.
I got two. There are two sanctioned Christmas songs in Jeff's Christmas song repertoire, and that is Feliz Navidad and Melakaliki Maka, because I apparently just don't like English Christmas music.
Okay.
So happy holidays and welcome to the Rage Select Podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm John.
No, I tell you, I'm gonna say it every year, John. I'm gonna say it every year until somebody fucking pays attention to me. The problem with Christmas music is that nobody is okay. And I got to finish, because at first the statement sounds so patently false that people are going to start, screaming directly into their phone or computer, whatever. Nobody's making good new Christmas music that is not like super pop culture Mariah Carey's Christmas album or whatever. Like, I think that I found like one punk rock band that had like a Christmas album.
Mast and Schroeder released a Christmas album last year.
Okay, so then the second part of this, okay, I want to make that as a conditional statement. There is new Christmas music. Like one year the Squirrel Nut Zippers put out a Christmas album and blah blah. It's just that my father will not let me play any of those albums at Christmas.
Good point.
He wants to listen to the same fucking Bob Hope Christmas songs from his childhood. I'm just like, you remember last week we were talking about the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
I'm so tired of those Bob Hopes. I could go the rest of my days without hearing Jingle Bells one more goddamn time, because it was fine the first 1 trillion times that I heard it. But at this point, no.
Okay.
No. I'm just excited because it actually almost feels like winter outside.
Yeah, well, it's somewhat cold.
Except that I went to bed last night with the heat on, and then I woke up after 5 hours sweating and like.
Yeah, because the middle of the day, it's like still fucking hot.
Stupid Texas.
Morning and evening are cold, and not even really that cold. They're just cool.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. So it's time for the podcast. We have a bunch of news this week. I'm gonna just caveat here by saying that John and I record this podcast a lot of times, or I try to record the podcast a lot of times on Thursday to give my editors time to get through this. So there's the big PlayStation thing is happening on, is it Saturday?
Yeah.
And there's also the VGAs are coming at a certain point soon. We don't have either one of those to talk about. So that'll be all coming up next week. There'll be a big, we'll have a bunch of, well, probably not. It's all just the VGAs are always the big old wank fest, right?
Well, the big thing about this year's VGAs is because of No Man's Sky, they actually put out a press release stating that any games that are featured in the VGAs that are like to be coming soon will be gameplay footage of actual in-game footage, not pre-rendered trailers.
I feel like that whole thing, and I want to come back to this a little bit later, but I feel like video game enthusiasts as a whole, trailers have been lying to us for fucking years, right? Killzone 3, remember that trailer but Sony put out at E3 that looked nothing like the game that came out finally?
Yeah.
And everybody's just like, it's like when people started talking about Aliens Colonial Marines as being this big bait and switch, and I'm just like, did you start playing video games last week? They've been baiting and switching for 20. It's like part of the whole industry.
Yeah, well, it's something people don't want a part of the industry anymore.
Hey, well, I'm glad. I just wonder, why did it take everybody this goddamn long to figure that out? And why couldn't we just, demand that shit back in the old days, before...
It took No Man's Sky. That's what it took.
PS2 era, maybe before that. I remember specifically there was a trailer for Metal Gear Solid 2 that showed Snake on that boat running around with a grenade launcher shooting people. And I was like, how do I get that grenade launcher? And I was never able to figure out where the fuck to get that grenade launcher. But it brings up a whole bunch of other questions, which I think are interesting. Like the trailers that are rooted the most in my head tend to be Metal Gear trailers. And because Metal Gear trailers used to tend to come out like so early in the development before the game really got hunkered down, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember there was a Metal Gear Solid 3 trailer that was like, it was like one of the very first ones that they put out, and it was a long trailer. It was like 7 minutes, and in the middle of it, it had this whole section of Snake like ambushing this little squad that was walking through the jungle, right? Where it was like he went up a tree and he like cut off this one guy, and then he like got to this other guy, and they like came out of the bushes and got a guy. And all like a lot of that stuff wasn't in the game, or there were you could still kind of do the same thing, but like that particular sequence that was shown was early development, and as they developed, like the game got actually better than that. So I start to wonder, does this mean that because we got a story about that Ninja Theory game with the crazy woman being delayed, and how they said that they showed. They started talking about it right at the beginning of their development when they had enough art to basically put out together a trailer. And so they talk about how in any normal cycle, they would wait until they were like 3/4 of the way done with the game so that they weren't showing you a thing that may or may not end up being in the game.
Yeah.
But I guess it brings up an interesting question that says that if we're going to get really righteous about making sure that everything that we see in the trailer is definitely going to be in the full game and is definitely going to be a representative of what the game is going to look like when it comes out, then that means that we can't have trailers, that we shouldn't really even get any information about media about a game until what, 4 or 5 months before it's ready to come out?
Well, one of the games that's going to be featured is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
So,
So you bought a 4K TV so that you could watch the Mass Effect Andromeda?
No.
Fuck that. I think we're the only two people on the internet who are pissed off at that fucking asshole for being like...
I was just pissed off that the gameplay footage they show was boring as fuck.
Well, yeah. Know that too. I'm definitely...
I hope to God it's not the same fucking level.
But it's going to be a trailer. Like it's
No, it's not a trailer. It's in-game footage.
Oh, it's in-game
It's going to be a guy playing the game.
Okay. I don't watch the VGAs because I find awards shows all awards shows to be dumb.
They're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. No one cares. No one gives. In all honesty, no one gives two shits about what game is going to win what award. Are they nice that certain games like, oh, confirmation that the game I love is fucking the best ever? Great. Yeah, people like it. People are watching the VGAs or the Game Award shows. They're not called the VGAs anymore.
Right.
The Game Award show. People are watching it so that they can watch the fucking clips and footage of whatever games are going to be shown off there.
I'm just curious. I'm looking up. I remember it was the VGAs that gave the first Telltale Walking Dead game of the year that year. That was 2012, which was like Skyrim. Was Skyrim that year? Or Dark Souls? Because Skyrim and Dark Souls came out in the same year. I can never keep it. I think that I might be thinking of 2011. But let me just see here. 2013. No. All I know is that the year they gave like Game of the Year to The Walking Dead, and I'm just like, look, I'm not trying to poop on The Walking Dead, but I honestly challenge you, the listener at home, how many times have you gone back and played season 1 of The Walking Dead just because it's such a great game? Did you just play it once and then you fucking forgot about it, or did you go back and play it over and over again? I don't know. Anyway. Well, but before we get to any of that news, I have a thing I have to talk about, John.
Okay.
I'm going now. I don't know how other people live their lives, right? But
one step at a time. They put their
leg.
Yeah, one leg at a time.
I tell you, it's one of my favorite stupid jokes from American Dad. There's an episode where Stan gets obsessed with My Morning Jacket, and he meets the guy at the end, and he's like, Stan, I'm just a regular guy. Put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And then he like whistles, and 2 owls fly up holding pants, and he does like a double backflip, and then lands with one leg in the pants, and like puts the other one up. Anyway, I like to think about, like, when I make a big declarative statement about whatever, I like to think about it a lot. Like, I like to think about it, and I like to ask people to tell me why I'm wrong, and then like think about whether I think they're wrong, and then go blah 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 blah. I like to think and think and think, because when I say a thing, especially on the internet, I don't want it to be a thing that I haven't fully thought through. You would not believe how much time I spend thinking about Taco Bell. Anyway, I don't know, because I'm not through it. I'm like 15 hours in. I think that Final Fantasy 15 might be kind of a bad game, John.
Okay.
I think that it might kind of suck, and I don't want to think that, but I don't know, dude. The combat system is really sloppy and hard to use, because Square keeps trying to make their games into real-time games as opposed to any turn-based or any stop the action or do any of that stuff. And I don't know why they're so obsessed with that, but I feel like it just doesn't work here, that you've got a system that's set up almost like a kind of a Soulsian. Actually, you know what it is? I was checking out the very beginning of Lightning Returns, and it's a lot like Lightning Returns if you had a whole party full of people instead of just Lightning, because that all happens as an active time battle thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just want to talk about one thing, the one thing that I've actually thought a lot about, and that is the beginning of the game.
Carbuncle's a stupid animal. Is that what you're about to say?
No. Carbuncle's the best.
Okay, just making sure. Just because if you had said yes, that my guess was correct there, I was going to have to slap you.
No, it's more about, okay, it is a problem that you and I have spoken about before, okay? I think that in order for a person to understand and be engaged with Final Fantasy 15, they need to watch Kingsglaive and watch that entire anime series, because the game is like literally withholding information from the player about what's going on in the game world in a place where I feel like they are expecting you to go do that. And I can almost forgive the anime because that's free, right? You can just go watch that on YouTube.
Yeah.
You watched it, right?
Yeah, I watched it on Crunchyroll.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but it's all about the relationship between Noctis and his pals. And
it's broken up into like 4 or 5 episodes.
Okay.
One episode focuses on Noctis, one episode focuses on Procto, and on the
Prompto and Ignis and
Gladios. Like each one kind of focuses on each of them and each of their at different points in Noctis's life, kind of on how they became friends, or how he gained their respect, or how they gained his respect, and how he stopped being such a pompous little shit because of them. Kind of thing.
Which is great.
Prompto's episode, though, is probably by far the best of that entire series.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, his entire backstory is amazing to me.
Okay. So, did you ever end up watching Kingsglaive?
No, I have not seen it yet.
So you should know that at the beginning of Kingsglaive, they do that thing that you see in tons of Final Fantasy games, tons of just fantasy stuff in general, where it's like, 2,000 years ago, the Empire,
Star Wars title crawl?
Yeah, of Niflheim started to encroach into the world, and only the free people in the land of Insomnia were able to stop the rise of their mechanized soldiers by creating this blah, blah, blah. Just whatever. Your standard BS.
Star Wars opening crawl sequence.
Right. And then they get into it, right? They explain the world to you briefly, and then they go, okay, go. Now, Final Fantasy 15 starts with... It's basically just like a loading screen with some text that talks about like, the prince, whatever. And then there's like this weird flash forward or flashback or something. It's not clear. They haven't talked about it yet. Scene of what seems to be like either alternate timeline or older or different versions of the main 4 characters fighting what looks like Satan sitting in a chair. Like there's a room that's on fire and there's this big muscular guy kind of reclining like what is a man style, right? And the whole room is on fire, and the character that you're playing looks like an older Noctis with like a big beard or whatever. And they like there's this big thing, and they all go behind this thing for cover. Then it flashes forward, and the king is telling Noctis and the other 3, like, okay, go, you have to go, you have to do the thing, go. And then they get ready to go, and then the king takes Noctis aside, and he's like, hey, I just wanted to say good luck. We're all counting on you, whatever, And then, like, it goes from there to, and I think you've seen this in the trailers, they're all broken down in the middle of the road. The car is broken.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole point where you have to hold down the R2 button to push the car, and then you get to meet Cindy with her boobs out and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, so I went back and I played... because I still have all the discs. I looked at the beginnings of Final Fantasy 10, 13, 13.2, 13.3, and then I still remember the beginnings of, say, 7 and 8, right? And what I can say is that most Final Fantasy games start in one of 2 different ways. They either have a mystery that's bombastic. No, that's not true. They all start the same way. It's a bombastic intro to the world that jumps into the action, and bada bing, you're right there. Think of the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, where the train drives up, and it's all this crazy world, and you don't know what's going on, and the train drives up, and then Cloud jumps off of it. But instantly the Avalanche guys come out and start telling you what you're doing and why you're there. You're Cloud Strife. You've been hired by Avalanche. You're going to assault the Shinra Corporation. Okay, I understand what's going on here. Final Fantasy 13, Lightning and Zaz are on the train, and there's a big kind of explosion, and Lightning jumps out. She starts doing all the backflips and shoot people. The train crashes, and there's like this big military thing, and then a big robot comes in. The first thing you do in 13 is fight a big robot. Boom. You may not know why you're fighting that big robot, but you at least know that there's good guys and there's bad guys, and you're on one side and they're on the other. Like all these little cyberpunk rock kids come out and start shooting guns. Boom. Final Fantasy VIII starts with Squall, and he's, training with Cypher, and there's this like a beautiful intro cutscene that tells you, that kind of just gives you a flavor into the world and whatever. All of those games give you a really, even 10, which I'd forgotten about, it's like 10 starts with that scene of the whole party sitting around right before the end battle, where it's like all their weapons are stacked up. It's that real kind of somber music, and they're all just kind of, Titus puts his hand on Yuna's shoulder, and everybody's kind of just hanging around. And then Titus, there's a voiceover with him where he's like, this is where it all ended, but we have to let's go back to where it all began. And then you jump back, and he's a blitzball player, and he's in Xanarkand, and all that's established really early on. And then a big fuck off monster comes in and blows up the town, and then he wakes up in the past, or wherever he is
in the future,
whatever. And you're hooked, right? There's a bunch of big stuff going on. Final Fantasy 15 starts, like, I don't think they even explain what's going on, is that Noctis and his friends are driving away from the capital to get Noctis to Lunafreya for the two of them to marry, to solidify a peace treaty between the land of Insomnia and the land of the Niflheim people, because they've been at war for a long time, and the king is starting to get old. He's starting to lose the power to be able to shield the people. I only know all this because I watched Kingsglaive, right?
Yeah.
The same is true with his buddies. I don't, because I never watched the anime. I mean, like, I get it. Gladio's the strong one, and Ignis is the smart one, and Prompto is the jackass. But I don't know much about them. I mean, I'm getting a little here and there, but I'm 15 hours in, and if I hadn't have watched Kingsglaive, I don't know that I'd really know what's going on. Because in Kingsglaive, there's this giant thing that happens where literally Noctis goes to sleep at the end of Act 1, and there's like a montage of clips from Kingsglaive, and then he wakes up at the beginning of Act 2, and Ignis comes in with a newspaper and is like, oh my God, everything's fucked up and shit went down. We got to get out of here. And they go. But it feels like the hook got taken out and put into Kingsglaive instead of being in the game. And I feel like that's a real problem, because JRPGs and RPGs in general, they live or die on the story, right? Like, if a JRPG that has great game mechanics but you can't get into the story, that's what happened with me in what's that Studio Ghibli game with the big nose little fairy guy? There's like a little kid, and he goes into the fairy world after his mom dies.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what the title is.
Okay. So the story for that game, I like, it didn't hook me at all. The mechanics seemed like they were fine, but the story didn't do anything for me, and so I wasn't able to get into the game. The same is true that if the story to, say, Dark Souls was bad, or the story to Tokyo Mirage Sessions was boring. I guess it's one of the reasons I've never gone back to play the Tales game, that we played the 2 parts of, or the 1 part of, where I'm just not that into the storyline, so I don't go back to play it. And I feel that they're doing themselves a real disservice by trying to force people onto these other media things, because, as I feel like I've always said, and I really want you to weigh in on this, even though you haven't played the game, but I want to just hear your general thoughts. I can't judge, like, I feel like if you take critical information to your video game and put it into a comic book, a TV show, a movie, a direct-to-DVD thing, a web series, or whatever, then it doesn't count when I'm evaluating your property, because there are people who are not going to go seek that out, and you can't give people a homework assignment for a $60 video game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got the $60 video game, but if you want to know what's going on, then you need to go spend $12 and rent Kingsglaive on Google Play, because otherwise you're just not going to have any idea what the fuck is going on here.
Or buy it digitally on the PlayStation Network.
Or that, yeah, or whatever. And it would also be a different thing if this game came with it.
There is edition that did come with it, though.
Okay, but I mean, like, it needs to be in the $60. Like, it needs to be like on the main menu, like start Final Fantasy 15, and when you go to start, it goes, "Hey, we really recommend that you watch Kingsglaive first." Please watch Kingsglaive before you start this game.
Instead of hoping that everybody who plays this game is going to be a Final Fantasy fan and had already bought Kingsglaive, because
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I'm so torn because I want to like the game and I see the bones in there of a good game, but it seems like it's really showing its roots as was it Nomura that originally was the guy, the Kingdom Hearts guy that was the original developer? Is it really feels more...
Well, it was also originally developed as a sequel to 13.
Yeah, well, it was a spin-off, right?
Yeah.
We were going to be two games. It was Versus 13. But it also feels weird because it feels more like Kingdom Hearts in the kind of real-time battles that they have going on than what you traditionally get. I mean, like I said, I went back and played the very beginning of Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 13-2, and 13-3, and those felt like tighter systems. 10 feels like a tighter system. 12, even though I don't care for it with the macros, feels like a tighter system. This is just real loose. Like it's hard to see where anything that's happening, and like I said, the camera's so up close. I was telling you the fact they're all dressed in black, so when you're having this big dust up with 13 dog enemies, and it's like all 4 of your guys are dressed exactly the same, so there's no real immediate visual representation of who is where and who's doing what, because you're struggling to figure out which guy with a black jacket is doing what here. Is it the guy with the big sword in the black jacket? Is it the guy with the 2 knives in the black jacket? Or is it the guy with the gun in the black jacket?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, my thing with that is that I love supplemental material for games. Like, I love it when companies are like, here's your game. Also, here's a comic book, and here's an animated movie, and like, I fucking love that stuff. But having said that, I don't think that stuff should be like removed
mandatory
from a game to... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, my favorite example, Dead Space.
Yep.
Dead Space had an animated movie. Actually, each Dead Space game had an animated movie. But Dead Space had an animated movie. It had a comic book, which was then turned into a motion comic that you could download for free on whichever console you had.
Right.
But they weren't... And those told the story of what happened before the game, both the anime and the comic, though they were told from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Like the animated movie was done from the focus of what was going on the Ishimura before
they showed up.
Before Isaac Clarke showed up, and then the other one was what was going on the planet before all the shit went the fan.
Dead Space
1.
Oh, right, all right, yeah, okay, no, yeah, because they do go down to the planet at the very end, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's basically what, like the finding of the marker and what happened on the planet and stuff like that. But the thing is like, that information, like, the specifics of what those things are talking about weren't in the game.
Right.
But the basic gist of, this is a planet. This ship is a planet cracker. It opens up the planet to get its resources. They found something on the planet, and then then the shit hit the fan.
Right.
So stuff started going bad, and that's the mystery of the game. And you find out, and if you have read that comic or if you have watched that animated movie, it doesn't change the game, but it does add more flavor to it.
Yeah.
And that's great. I think those are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you basically purposefully remove content from the game, or just don't explain something in the game, and just go, someone's working on an animated movie, or someone's got a comic book. They'll just explain it in the comic book, or they'll just explain it we don't need to put it in the game. We need to get this out. Let's skip over that.
The thing that I find really
that's the stuff I have a problem with. So
no, I'm totally 100% with you. That started to happen to Assassin's Creed after a while, right? Where there were so many like comics and spin-offs and side stories and things that like it's like, oh no, if you read the comic, then like the bad guy that he's going after in Assassin's Creed 3 that Desmond is actually going after, who kind of just in the modern day, who kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy? Anyway, that was back when I knew Peter, and he would be like, "Oh no, he's in the comics." And I'm like, "Well, I don't read the fucking comics." But what sucks about it is that I can actually look at the beginning of that and knowing what I know about that. If it seems like if you just restructured the beginning of the game, like you start the game with this whole like we're fighting Satan thing, right? And then like when you fade to white or you fade to fire or you fade whatever, right? You have a long like sweeping in shot with a voiceover from Noctis saying, oh man, that I still remember the day that we left to go find Lunafreya. My father, the king of insomnia, had been fighting a losing battle with the technologically obsessed Nilfgaardians for years, and we finally decided to sue for peace. Like, all it would take is, like, a little bit, like, just that beginning
A little
part.
bit of exposition.
Exactly. And then, like, maybe, like, just one, like, make, like, a 5-minute scene, right, where he's talking about the state of the world, and then when he comes over, have Noctis by himself, right, and then have Gladio come in and be like, Noctis, it's ready to go. It's time to go. And have me like, that's Gladio. He's been my best friend, and he's the arm of the king, keeps me safe. Prompto was always a just shitty jackass that liked to.
Well, Prompto is actually his best friend, but yeah.
Right, yeah. Anyway, but you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like you could put together like a little thing where it was just whatever. And then the other thing is that I really wish that they would have explained how the car. Like, I wish I would have seen the car break. I wish I would have seen the regalia break down instead of just kind of smash cutting from.
Yeah. Well, I know that's not even in the anime or anything. Like, that's.
Yeah, it just feels like there's parts missing, and this sounds like a weird complaint because, like, most JRPGs explain too much.
Yeah.
And this one is like it's gone in the opposite direction of just not explaining anything. Like, if I hadn't watched the anime, I wouldn't be able to talk to you about. Oh, well, why do they have the weapons that disappear, right? Like, why can Noctis do that? It's because he's the son. It's because that's one of the powers from the great kings of old and blah, 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 blah. But they don't explain that. And then they're like, oh, Noctis, you need to go out and find all these ancient weapons in order to, awaken your power as king. And it's like, tell me more. Tell me something about that. And not, anyway. So I'm kind of enjoying it, but I just feel like it's weirdly fragmented, and it's weird because I haven't heard anybody talk about that yet, where the first 15 minutes of a video game or a movie is the most important part of the entire thing. It's what gets you interested and makes you want to know more. And if you start with something interesting where you're like, oh man, I want to know more about this world that's so mysterious, or if you start with, hi, my name is Protagonist, and this is my story. That's my best friend. That's my best girl. That's my dad. Oh, no, my dad died. Oh, my best girl's been kidnapped. Come on, best friend, let's get in the car and we'll go save her. Easy. Or even any of the exposition dumps, like when we were playing that Trails of Cold Steel, and it's like the guy gets off the train and he pulls out his thing and the girl bumps into him and she's just like, oh, I see that your Flurgablog is red. I got a red Flurgablog too. What do you think that means? He's like, I don't know, but when the academy sends you a summons telling you to come to special war school, you gotta go. Maybe we'll be in the same class. I hope so. I'm gonna go to the inn real fast and blah blah blah. Like, you get all this information in that one little thing, and here, half the time it's like they're having these conversations that are about nothing, and I'm like, could you at least use the back and forth to
miss the days of Double Dragon where you would just have a girl on screen and a gang would show up, punch her in the gut, take off with her, and two characters would come out and go, no, we gotta go save her.
Yep, I'm gonna murder my way across this entire city. I don't know, it feels like the storytelling, and who knows, I want to really say that I haven't talked about any of the things that I enjoy, and I did enjoy things. This isn't a review. I don't want to give you a score because I'm not even like, I'm taking my sweet time with it. So who knows? Maybe you're
just giving initial impressions.
Yes,
based on the fact that a lot of the reviews out there are like, this is a great game. The mechanics are great. The characters are great. The story is a little bit weak, but
See, and that's what I don't understand is I keep seeing those reviews who are like, oh, the characters are great. The mechanics are great. The story kind of sucks. And I'm like, the story's the whole thing for an RPG. If the story sucks, then the game sucks. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, we got to get going because we're already half hour in and we haven't even touched the news yet. All right, so last week, John and I got to do one of those nice things of the video game industry. They just take their finger and they just like make you look like a fool. They put it in your nose and they're like, ha ha, or something. So we actually played the founder update for No Man's Sky.
Because it came out like the day after we recorded.
Yes. And actually, I would like to update you, John.
Oh, okay.
I was playing the single player by myself, and we fucked up on the live stream.
Oh.
Because all you have to do is you bring up, you know how you bring up that build menu?
Yeah.
There's one of the things that you can build is a probe. Yeah. And when you build that probe, you can tell it to look for stuff. It's like one of the, you remember in the old ones where you'd find those things, right? And one of the things you can tell it to find is an empty outpost. And then you can just go to that outpost and start building right there.
Okay, cool.
So you can start doing that almost immediately.
Oh, okay.
Which is nice. But so No Man's Sky added in, for those of you who didn't listen to last week's, a foundation update. That added base building, a quick menu, some graphical improvements, a couple of other things. And honestly, it's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
I liked what I played.
Yep. I said a billion times on the stream, but I was talking with a fan who came into town, and I went out to dinner with him, and I was talking with him about it, and I really want to drive this point home to anybody that's listening. I think that it behooves gamers, especially people who bought No Man's Sky, especially people who are upset about No Man's Sky, to give Hello Games some credit for trying to fix the problems of their game, for putting in a post-launch big content update. We don't get these that often. We don't get an update that's
especially free.
Yeah, that adds base building directly into the game. Oh, and there was a report I saw last week that said that people were crawling through the code.
Oh, yeah.
Vehicles are probably coming next.
Yeah, because there was a unused code for something called a buggy that someone then implemented in the game, and it looks like a vehicle buggy that you can drive.
Yep.
Though it didn't work because the code wasn't fully there.
Yeah. So I have to say that, like, this update, it addresses a lot of the issues. Now, it doesn't address all of the issues, and it doesn't address the core issue. It doesn't address the issue that I feel like most people suffer from, which is my idea of what this game was going to be is different than what it actually was because Sean Murray wouldn't stop saying, yeah, you can do that in this game. And I understand that. But what I can say is that the alternative to what Hello Games is doing right now, okay, let's be up front here. You're not all getting refunds. It's not just going to be like, oh, well, I want my money back. Well, that's not how games work. Like, that's a whole other conversation. That's not.
If you already got a refund, good for you.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, sorry.
Yeah, that's not No Man's Sky. That's all games. You know, I wish I could get my money back for Aliens Colonial Marines 2 months after I got it because it was a crappy game. Or I wish I could get my money back. And you can on Steam for some stuff. And Steam was liberal, but giving people back their money on No Man's Sky. But Sony won't give you your money back for much of anything. I had to open like a trouble ticket with Nintendo to get my money back for I digitally bought Tokyo Mirage Sessions and it just kept crashing on me every time. I had to literally like open a ticket with them to get my money back because there was no process in place to give me my money back even though the game was broken. But that's a whole other thing. I don't think that, like, if you want to argue that if a game is bad, I should be able to get my money back and how long is reasonable for me to do that, that's a different argument. But as far as what Hello Games has done right now, I think you have to give them credit because they're trying to do the right thing.
And it's very clear that they listened.
Right. They could have just fucked off with everybody's money and whatever because the development time that they are putting in right now to put these features in the game cost them the money that they made as profit from selling the game. So, you know, they're not selling this as an additional patch. They're not making you pay any more. And I think it's worth it to, at the very least, to not shit on them for doing it, which I've seen a lot of online of people just like, fuck you, too little, too late, doesn't matter, blah, 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 blah. Because the alternative is if you disincentivize a company from trying to make it right when they do something wrong, then they have no reason to even try. They just go, well, everybody thought, I don't know, Assassin's Creed Unity was shitty, and it's broken as fuck, but if we spend all this time trying to fix it, people are just going to be like, too little, too late, fuck you guys, so fuck them. You know, they bought it, we got their money, and bye. So, but then part of this story is also that, you know, there was that UK has, like, a lot more stringent consumer protection laws about, like, if you say a thing's going to do a thing, then it has to do a thing.
Yeah.
And there was a case that it had been opened up in the UK based on basically what the I think it was screenshots on the Steam page with the description of the game.
Well, it was screenshots and trailers.
Mm-hmm. That and the basic contention was that they said there were things were going to be in the game that weren't in the game. Now, the UK Advertising and Standards Authority this week actually came back and said that it was close enough that they won't pursue any additional action.
Yeah, a lot of what they basically kind of, what it also, I think I had heard about it, and I could be wrong, they could have not said anything about this, but what I had also heard is that a lot of the things that people were complaining that weren't in the game were stuff that Sean Murray said in interviews, and they're like, that's not false advertising, that's just bad promotion.
Yeah.
Like the actual advertisement material that was sent out did not falsely advertise what would be in the game.
Yeah. Which brings, I mean, another big argument. Like, I just don't, I don't want people to think that I'm like 100% on board with No Man's Sky. I'm not. I think that they're doing a good thing. I think that at some point somebody should have fucking watched what Sean Murray was doing and said, you're not allowed to go to interviews anymore because you just say yes to whatever they say. And if you
give an answer that's so vague that you insinuate that yes it is, but you're actually saying, well, I don't know.
You obfuscate to the point where they could interpret it as a yes.
Yeah.
The guy literally was never like, no, that's not in the game, and no, we don't have any plans to put it in the game, and no, etc.
Yeah. Because like when people would ask, could two players meet in the world? He's like, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We're still really early in the development of it, so it's not there right now, but that's something that could be there.
Yeah, and I like I said, I think that they should definitely be held. They should definitely be taken to task a little bit for that. They should definitely. There's also the question that we were talking about at the very beginning, which is they kept showing off these gameplay videos, and a lot of those gameplay videos didn't match what was actually in the game. But I'll tell you what, like the big fleets that we saw when we were playing on the Sunday stream looked a lot closer to what was in those original trailers than what was in the base game when it came out. So, blah. Anyway, enough No Man's Sky. Let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about Star Wars. Did you get your tickets for Star Wars?
No.
I hear everybody went online and
dude, I've been broke until today. Like literally, I got paid today.
Okay.
And proceeded to buy Christmas gifts.
Okay.
So that I could make sure that I could buy Christmas gifts.
Are you broke again?
No, I'm actually quite well because this is kind of a not rent check.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Not rent checks tend to go less quickly.
I have a secret for the people out there in internet land. You don't have to pre-buy tickets unless you want to go to like the 7:30 or the midnight on like the night before, or like I've never had a problem getting tickets for. I didn't have a problem. I bought tickets to go see episode 7 the Friday that it came out, like an hour and a half before the show started.
It also depends on what theater you're trying to go to.
Yes.
If you're trying to go to like a local chain here in Austin, Alamo Drafthouse, which does have theaters in other states and things like that, then yes, you need to buy your tickets ahead of time because they tell you to buy your tickets ahead of time regardless, because they'll refuse to sell you tickets an hour before the fucking showtime just because they can.
Yup.
The movie could have been out for 3 weeks at that point.
Yep.
Because I've actually had that happen to me.
Oh, I know.
That's why I actually don't like the Alamo Drafthouse, because there are a bunch of pretentious fuckwads there.
Yep.
But having said that, if you want to go to a see screening there the day it releases, you kind of have to, because they're sold out. Like all their screenings for the first week are sold out at Alamo Drafthouse right now.
Sure.
But if you want to go see it at a regular theater, Tinseltown or whatever,
go to a Regal Cinema at midnight on a Tuesday. I swear you'll be able to see the new Star Wars movie. And even if you want to see it on Friday, here's the thing. If you're a big fan and you're like, oh, shit, I forgot, or I couldn't get tickets to the Alamo Drafthouse, guess what? You can find a theater in Georgetown with huge screens that's 15 minutes away from Austin that will totally sell you some tickets. Just don't give a fuck, because the people that live there, they don't give a fuck about Star Wars. Like, they act like, I hate this idea that I saw my friends on Facebook with this, like, oh, shit, I'm in line. I'm in virtual line.
That was all Alamo Drafthouse, by the way.
To buy. Okay, listen, Alamo Drafthouse, your food ain't that good, and your theaters ain't that good either. I've seen bigger screens. I've seen cleaner theaters, and I've seen places where I don't have to watch a bunch of servers walk in front of the screen all the way full height, and interrupt my movie going experience. So, but I've never had a problem if I wanted to go see a movie. Like, I don't know. Maybe if you want to go like to the one that starts in 30 minutes and it's the day that it came out, that's a problem. But anyway, that's all a lead up to a trailer that came out right after we recorded our podcast last week for the 4th Star Wars Battlefront DLC. So we've had, what have we had? We had Bespin, we had Death Star, we had Mos Eisley, and now the 4th one is Scarif, the area with the big walkers from the trailer for Rogue One.
It's like a beach.
Yeah, big beach.
Kind of looks like D-Day if you want to get a real-world allegory.
Yep. So, yeah, I didn't notice this, I noticed this a little bit more, but like the stormtroopers and the X-Wings in this look really weird. Or the stormtroopers and the TIE fighters look really weird. Like the X-Wings look normal, but like I don't know if you caught that at the very beginning where it was like, you see that TIE fighter? It looked like a weird, like, look at this thing. It doesn't look like a regular TIE fighter.
Well, I mean,
it's an atmospheric fighter or something.
I mean, it's very much a based on the designs that are in Rogue One.
Oh, okay. But see, since Rogue One happens within the actual timeline of Star Wars, I don't know why anything would look different. I don't know why there would be weird looking TIE fighters. But anyway, this looks pretty cool. I need to go back. I know that it sucks that Black Friday came when I was so broke because
Ditto.
They were selling the whole digital edition with the season pass on the PlayStation Network for like $11. So then also they got the big Imperial Commander dude with the cape, so they can call down airstrikes and such. And Jyn Orso is the hero on the Rebel side. Looks pretty hot. I mean,
looks good.
About as good as the normal stuff.
Star Wars Battlefront, so you know.
Yep. And they've been good with their trailers. Star Wars Battlefront has. They've done a good job of putting together trailers that make it look really, really fun.
Yeah.
And
I assume once it comes out, we'll play it on a live stream.
Oh, probably. I mean, we skipped the Death Star one. We haven't done that one yet.
Oh yeah, good point.
In fact, I don't even know if we did. We didn't do.
Oh, we didn't do Bespin either.
Yeah, we're gonna need to have like a big Battlefront day one of these days. So, and I hope that you guys like Battlefront because in an interview just recently, Blake Jorgensen, the CEO of Electronic Arts, basically said that like you're probably going to not see another Battlefield game for 3 years.
Battlefront game or Battlefield?
Battlefield game because they're basically focusing everything on Battlefront for the next few years. Now, that actually lines up with the release schedule for Battlefront because Battlefield 3 was 2011, Battlefield 4 was 2013, and then Battlefield 1 was this year, and then you had Hardline that Visceral created.
Yeah.
But that's more of like I think Hardline at this point we can all agree kind of falls into the same category as with the Jackass crew, Bad Company, right?
Yeah.
It's like a spin-off.
Yeah, it's like a secondary spin-off that doesn't count.
So Battlefield is not yearly, and it looks like that's relatively in line with the way that they've been releasing up until now. But
Battlefront, however,
you know, they cashing in on that. I'd be interested to see what the sales figures for like Battlefield 1 versus Battlefront look like. I mean, you know, Battlefront has had a much longer time for people to go out and buy it on sale and whatever. But yeah. Next up, we got a 24 minutes worth of Yakuza 6 PlayStation Pro footage that came out. Unfortunately, this is actually just a website. This is just some other website doing stuff. This isn't like an actual trailer or anything, which is why it's basically just the main character walking around for 25 minutes.
Yep.
And then having conversations in Japanese that I don't know how to...
With no subtitles.
With Japanese subtitles.
Yeah.
So I will say that it looks
good.
Really good. There was a thing that I wanted to point out where when you look at this, John... This is kind of going back to Final Fantasy 13 or 15 a little bit. You see how everything is like super clean and super like streamlined, like it's not real gritty, you know?
There's a little grit, but I get what you mean.
Grit, but
like his clothing is super clean.
Well, I guess what I'm just saying is like the world itself is very crisply rendered. He's very crisply rendered, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been kind of a little bit upset with Final Fantasy 15 about is that they've started doing, I don't know what this render engine is, but you know in Watch Dogs how a lot of games have started doing this recently where they start using this weird grit to obfuscate detail that may be too fine to render on the screen.
Okay.
Like when the quadcopter disappears in Watch Dogs 2, it like kind of pixely grits out of existence. And
well, I thought that was an aesthetic choice.
Maybe Ubisoft tends to use whatever that is, but it's almost like they use this as a way to cover some fine detail, and Final Fantasy 15 does that as well. And I went back to look. I mean, I hooked up my PlayStation 3 to look at 13 and 13.2 and 13.3 and 10 and 10.2 remastered. And I generally expect in my Japanese games to have a much more kind of sleek and clean look than that kind of gritty obfuscation, right?
Okay.
Anyway, this is an interesting video. Well, it's interesting to just kind of like look at the level of detail because everything in the Yakuza games always just looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you know, the streets and the bars and the characters. I can say that they appear to have virtually no facial expressions.
Well, that's kind of always been the thing.
Like when they're having a conversation, it's like these two mannequins just their
mouths are moving, but they're staring blankly in the distance, and there's no actual like movement of cheek muscles or facial structure. It's just the mouth is opening and closing.
Just yep. My puppet has more flash than these people do, but I don't know. I'm still interested. I mean, you know, I like the Yakuza games. I think that I might make an effort to play 0 when it comes out because I enjoyed Yakuza 3. Might have been 3 was the last one that I like really dug into. Anyway. We also have 8 minutes worth of Resident Evil 7 coming out of IGN, except that John and I decided to stop watching after about minute 3, 4, because, boy, they were real chatty about all the things in the game, and this is the scariest part in the game, and this is what the game is about, and this and this and this, where I just don't want to know that stuff.
I want to be surprised. I mean, they showed some gunplay, which I thought was nice.
Yep.
You know, they talked about how the game kind of just drops you in and doesn't really explain anything. Like there's no tutorial. It's just like it drops you into the world and you kind of like the demo. Yeah. And you got to figure out what to do. Yep. And that's kind of cool.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think that we've had a lot of speculation, but I don't know that I personally have read anything. I think it's interesting they're going to a full house as the environment. That it looks like the entire game is probably going to be taking place. Maybe like that we're looking at like a mansion, a Resident Evil 1 mansion style thing, where you got a bunch of locked doors and a bunch of puzzles and a bunch of things. I do like the fact that at least from what we saw so far, we didn't see anything that looked like a fodder enemy. Like it looked like there was like a boss and there was.
It looks like you're just dealing with the family.
Yeah. There was one part. I mean, this is I guess not a spoiler, but like. There was one part where one character went crashing through a wall that was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, like the character when he's chasing you, like he don't give a shit.
Yeah.
He'll fucking break through a wall to come after you.
Yeah.
Which that seems cool.
Cool to me.
I can't wait to play it.
Yep.
I hope to God I'm able to get PlayStation VR before it comes out because I'd love to play that on PlayStation VR.
Yep, Capcom, you done good. You done good with that one. I just hope it looks like the departure that Resident Evil has needed for the last 2 games. You know, of just like okay, we're gonna fucking throw away. Of course, how crazy would it be? I think that they said that your character, like everybody calls your character like Rupert or something like that. I think it'd be really funny if like through the entire game. How awesome would it be if through the entire game? That like every mirror and reflective surface was like broken and fucked up, and at like the very end you like open up a door and the face is fucking like Leon Kennedy or whatever, and then somebody is like, well, you're on the run now, Rupert, you can't use that name anymore, why don't you use a new name? I like the name Leon, that's a good name.
Well, they did state that this takes place after
okay,
like long after, like this is after all of the Resident Evil games. So there is some there, if I remember correctly, there was an interview where there is a possibility that you may run into or hear about like
other
Chris
people.
Redfield or Leon Kennedy or one of those other characters.
Yeah.
But you are not playing as those characters.
Jill Valentine.
You are playing as an entirely new character that is basically an everyman kind of character. So they weren't really clear with they were like, oh, well, you could, it's possible kind of thing. You could run into, because I think they were just like, we really can't talk about it because we consider it spoilers, but there might be an incident where you run into or hear about someone doing something.
It looks like, though, but it's interesting because, I mean, I think it's finally solidified even after the demo, looking at least this particular thing. It's a first-person adventure/shooter game.
Yeah. And aren't we supposed to get one more update to the demo soon?
I think there's supposed to be another demo update relatively soon. I gotta take a look at that, because once they finally finish, because they were doing like these weird, dumb, incremental, like, okay, we can get into this room, but there's nothing to do in here. Like, John and I recorded, 40 minutes worth of Super Awesome Video Game Show that I was just like, nothing is happening here. Like, here's the original demo, and you could continue into this new room that opens up that has, like, some bullets in it, and that's it.
And it had some, like, new stuff, sort of, but, like, not
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But once the demo gets fully updated, we fully intend to go back and take a look at it. As far as trailers go, we also have a Titanfall 2. Apparently, they are bringing back in a free update the Angel City map from Titanfall 1, I believe. And we're bringing in a new map, and I believe that there's some new mechs coming as well. And it's a free update. So
sorry, I was laughing at what actually happened in that trailer. That was kind of funny.
What?
So two guys were fighting in two mechs.
Yeah.
And the other guy, you destroyed the dude's mech, and he ejected before it blew up.
Yeah.
So you ejected from yours, and then as he landed on the building, you threw down a grenade and killed him.
Oh yeah.
Like it was I just thought it was kind of funny.
Oh no, I love this trailer because it's like one of these runs of multiplayer where it's like, man, I should be so lucky to not die in 2 seconds in that game. But yeah, it looks like they're continuing to support Titanfall 2, especially the multiplayer portion, which is good.
And they also stated that the updates they plan to do are going to be free.
Yep, which is also good because I still cannot express enough when I finally saw, when somebody finally pointed it out, how flabbergasted I am that EA fucked Titanfall themselves.
Yeah.
That they themselves published Titanfall the week before Battlefield 1. What kind of horrible decision is that? This shit should have been out either at the end of December.
Wasn't it the week after Battlefield 1 and then it was the week before Call of Duty, or was it the other way around?
I think that's right. I think it was Battlefield 1.
Because I thought Battlefield 1 came out first.
Yeah, it was Battlefield 1 first, and then Titanfall, and then Call of Duty.
So it's like they put it like the week after Battlefield 1, but the week before Call of Duty, which is kind of like, dude, anyone who was going to buy Battlefield 1 over this game bought it already.
Yeah.
And anyone who's gonna look at it and go, I want Call of Duty.
Yep.
You know, you're setting yourself up for failure.
You take a page out of Overwatch's book. Release it next spring when nothing else is out.
Yeah.
And then give people who are tired of playing, like, that's the problem that I have with where they put it out, is they set it up to die. Because if you had waited until, say, February, when everybody's got new consoles and everybody's got new stuff and they're looking for stuff to play, everybody who got Battlefield 1...
Oh, shit, just January even.
Yeah, maybe even January. Tired of playing Battlefield 1, tired of playing Infinite Warfare, multiplayer. Overwatch is a little stale. You know, it's been out for a while now. I'm looking for something new, and it's like, oh, yeah, that Titanfall game is coming out. I should totally play that.
Overwatch is never stale, sir. You take that back.
Heroes are never stale? Is that...
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think that this one might fade away the way the original Titanfall. They released original Titanfall the same week as Dark Souls 2, which I know is like not exactly.
No one cares, Jeff.
Well,
only you care.
I care.
The people who would be playing Titanfall are not necessarily the people who played Dark Souls.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like. Look, I know that part of this is my desire to have something good to cover on the website every week, but I'm never able to understand when a company releases a middle tier, a shaky sequel or a new property that nobody's heard, like close to something big, something huge that Like, why would you put it there? Why wouldn't you delay it by 2 weeks? And I'm sure that there's somebody who could probably answer that as far as marketing goes or trends about when stuff comes out. But, like, I just can't imagine a worse time for Titanfall 2 to come out. Like,
yeah, I agree. I will say that EA made a bonehead decision on that one. That one is purely them.
Yeah.
Like, even if you like ignore Call of Duty, because it's not an EA product.
Right.
And you go, like, maybe they didn't know that, like, let's say they're like, for whatever reason, they're like, we don't care when Call of Duty comes out.
No. I thought they specifically were like, we're going to fucking scoop Call of Duty by putting out our sci-fi online multiplayer action shooter a week before, and we're going to get all those Call of Duty people on our side.
No,
you
you're
saw how
not.
shitty they were on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it, like, or how shitty the official Titanfall 2 Twitter was to Infinite Warfare.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, but it's like, even if you ignore that, even if you ignore Call of Duty, releasing it the week after Battlefield 1 was stupid.
Mm-hmm. Real dumb. Real dumb. I'll tell you what's not real dumb, or I don't even know if I can tell you if it's real dumb or not, is Lego Worlds.
Hey, we played that.
Yeah, we played Lego Worlds back on the Super Awesome Video Game Show when it first came out.
When it was an early access.
Yep, an early access. Basically kind of a Minecraft meets Lego, kind of weird Traveler's Tales, multiplayer, single player.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, they're bringing it to consoles.
Nice.
Coming to the PS4 and the Xbox One next year. There's a trailer out. So if you guys, you can always go watch us play on the Super Awesome Video Game Show, or you can watch this little trailer where you basically can dig into the world and you can build vehicles and you can build castles and all the different biomes. They've got cityscapes and spacescapes
and underwater and
yep. And there's like a lot of different
cloud stuff
that you can do. I think it's a real fun game. I just never really had the time to put into it, but what we played seemed like it was fun. And I kind of like the idea of being able to play it on a console better than the PC. Because
I agree.
The PC, at least when we played it, was like the first 2 weeks that it was out.
Yeah.
And it was rough. And I'd like to see what they've done with it since then, because the way this trailer
looks
lays
fun.
it out looks real fun. So, check it out. Lego Worlds. That'll be coming next year.
Good on them.
Not coming next year, actually already out on the PTR. You can't stop the Overwatch train, John. Overwatch just don't stop. They can't stop.
Any day now, they've got to release the whatever the Christmas event is going to be.
Yeah, fucking
any fucking day now.
Yep. Because we just got Sombra, and I believe that if not already, by the time this podcast goes up, the Symmetra updates have rolled into public out of the test server. But now the new
map
Oasis is on the test server. Now this isn't actually like an official Overwatch video that we're looking at. It's actually just somebody who took some footage from it. Looks cool though.
Yeah, they're vehicles that can run you over and kill you.
Yep. There's a highway that has some cars, but it's kind of like off to one side. It looks like a very kind of there's parts of it that looks like there's a lot of drop-offs,
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of places where you can get on top of stuff.
It kind of reminds me of it's an entirely new map that has elements of other maps in it. So that's interesting.
It's a little sparse is the only thing. Like, I don't know if that's because this is the PTR. I don't know if they are going to do more before they put it out. But, like, it's very clean lines, and, like, there's not a lot of, like, I know a lot of the map, like, say Eichenwald, right, which was the last new map. There were places where there were just garbage laying in the corner, right, or
well, I think that also speaks to where the map is, and it also speaks to the language of the world, the story of the world.
Yes.
This is a completely different place. This is a place that is clean. It is super clean. It is very, very clean lines, very clean streets, very clean, there is no trash anywhere.
Yeah.
It's very, this is the way this city is.
Yep. But it looks like it's going to be an interesting ad. It's got a bunch of different kind of areas that you can get up on top of, shortcuts that you can get around, and then a lot of big drop-offs on the edge for you to use your Lucio powers to punch people off the edge of the map.
It seems big. Like, that's actually, if I have anything that worries me, is that it seems bigger than any other map that I've seen. It seems
tall, right? It seems like there's a lot of just, I don't know. Every building that they're in seems like it's got a super high ceiling, and yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I mean, this video doesn't do a great job because it's actually running through all three versions of the map.
Oh, okay.
Right, because it's one of those. I think it's like it's like Nepal, where it's like a best of 3 capture and hold. I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, you wouldn't be playing the entire area. Like he actually, when you listen to the voiceover, and just FYI, because I should credit, this is from Overwatch Central. This video is coming in from. He's narrating that, like, okay, well, this is the second area, this is the third area.
Oh, okay. So see, I didn't get any of that.
Yeah. So we've been watching this, but this is actually 3 separate battle places.
Yeah.
So Overwatch
cool.
continuing to do its thing. All right. It's time now. John, we got to talk about a thing. I don't know how the game industry is so fucking bad at keeping any kind of secret for any amount of time, because one, we have not seen the Sony press event, but we can probably tell you now that Marvel vs. Capcom 4 is going to be announced there.
So I can actually say why it's so bad.
Okay.
Because there are so many people involved with making a video game. Now, you could say, well, there's a lot of people that are involved with making movies, and there's a lot of people involved with making TV shows. Yeah, but that shit gets leaked all the time, too. You know, so it's just, there are so many people that work on this shit that someone is going to leak something.
Oh, sure. No, I get that. I guess it's just, it's fine. Anyway, Marvel vs. Capcom 4, do you have any feelings about Marvel vs. Capcom 4?
I'm excited for Marvel vs. Capcom 4, if it's true. I've heard someone when we mentioned it in the live stream or whatever on Sunday streaming, someone in the chat was like, oh, but it's not the reason, because I brought up the fact that Capcom said that there is no development. They are not working on Marvel vs. Capcom 4. It's completely false.
Right.
And then someone in the chat was like, well, that's because it's being made by an outside source that's been hired out by Capcom to make the game for them. And so by them saying that it's not being worked on by Capcom, that way they're not technically lying. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if that sounds like bullshit. I mean, he could be, it's like, they could be saying there is nothing to announce because we're not working on anything, just because they don't want to announce anything and they want to try to still have it be a surprise, even though it's not a surprise anymore.
Yep.
But something like that, it's possible. I don't know, but yeah, I like Marvel vs. Capcom. I like the franchise. I'm totally on board for it.
Okay.
I liked Marvel vs. Capcom 3, though I still prefer Marvel vs. Capcom 2 over 3. And there's a lot of characters that I would love to see in a Marvel vs. Capcom 4. There's been some rumors that it's only going to be characters focused on that have been featured in the Marvel cinematic movies.
Interesting. Okay.
And possibly like the TV shows as well.
Okay.
And it's going to be those versions of the characters instead of like like
Black Cat, you have Agent Coulson.
Yeah, and so there will be no X-Men characters, like no Wolverine, no.
That'd be weird. That'd be a little bizarre.
No Cyclops, no Cable, no Deadpool. Like, none of those characters, because they're only doing the movie license properties that Marvel owns the rights to.
It's strange. Oh, sorry.
That's neither here nor there. None of that's been proven. None of that's confirmed, because this is all still fucking rumor.
Yeah. No, but the thing is that I can actually I could see that happening, because Marvel's been there's contingency. There's folks inside of Marvel that have been real dicks about, like, if it's not our cinematic universe, then it doesn't fucking exist, right? Like, the whole I've heard about what the X-Men storyline of, like, oh, mutants are dying off, there's no more mutations, it's all Terrigen Mists now because we sold off the rights to X-Men, but we still have the Inhumans.
Yeah, but it's not like they're getting rid of the X-Men books or anything. There still are X-Men books.
Sure.
Like, that's just a new storyline that they're doing, where, because at one point they released the Terrigen Mists in the world, and something happened that caused the Terrigen Mists to travel across the world, and they went, okay, well, now it turns out that the Terrigen Mists actually are, depending on a gene, how strong, a specific gene within the mutant population is, you may get sick from Terrigen Mists.
Right.
And some mutants don't. They explain that some mutants are not affected by Terrigen Mists at all. Yeah. Some are. It's something that they did in the comics. It's not like they're getting rid of them. Having said that, the Fantastic Four have been technically with the exception of Ben Grimm and Human Torch appearing in other books, for the most part, the Fantastic Four book is gone.
Yeah.
But I don't like. Here's the thing. Also, video games are different than movies.
Sure,
Marvel owns the video game rights to these characters. They can do whatever the fuck they want with them.
I think it would be interesting. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I think it would be interesting to see what the fan reaction was to characters that have been in all of the Marvel vs. Capcom games, like Wolverine, be taken out simply due to some kind of licensing BS that Marvel doesn't want to promote characters that aren't part of their own thing. I wonder if that happens. I think it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I have no dog in that fight. I don't give a fuck because Marvel vs. Capcom is too fast and I don't understand how to play it.
Yeah.
So it just irritates me and makes me mad. So
I understand.
Generally speaking, I just don't play it.
But I want to play it. So if there is a Marvel vs. Capcom 4, then great. I'm looking forward to it. I want to play it. I don't care if it's nothing but, the Avenger movie characters and the Guardians of the Galaxy and Luke Cage and Daredevil and Iron Fist from the Netflix TV shows and I
want to play that corrupt cop from the Luke Cage show. That's shown him to be in there. That kind of smarmy guy that gets shot.
And for whatever reason, Howard the Duck is in there.
Yeah. That dog with the
and Groot is a
helmet.
fightable character, and Star-Lord and all those.
The other thing, the opposite side of what I was just saying is that it could be a great shakeup, right? Is that the way that, like Street Fighter is a little. It feels kind of old to me just because it's been 25 years, and I can still pick Ken, and he still plays relatively the same way that he did. I mean,
not as much in 5, but yeah.
There's still fireballs, there's still shoryukens, whatever. It might be interesting if they have to go back in and kind of rebalance from the ground up because you're not basing your fighting structure on these characters have to be in there and they have to kind of have these moves because fans like them.
But the rumor is they're going to announce it at the PlayStation Expo.
Yep.
And if they do, that's cool. What I'm going to extremely laugh at is if nothing gets announced.
Yes, that's true. That will be this week's Jeff looks like a jackass because the video game industry tricked him part of the podcast. All right, so I'll tell you what, the video game industry tricks me all the time. No,
they're very tricksies.
This segue has gone off the rails. Hitman had an update this month.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, and you know what? I have got to say that as in addition to the Hello Games thing, God damn do I like this Hitman game. And I like it when they do things like this. So all the episodes are out, but they still did an update this November, and that update added offline mode. And offline mode means that you can now go offline and keep all the unlocks that you had when you unlocked them. You remember, like I talked.
These are all the things that you complained about.
Exactly. Now, you still have to be online to do the unlocks in the first place, but at least once you've unlocked them, when you go offline, you get to keep the unlocks, which was a huge problem.
So if I go offline, if I start the game offline and I play all this stuff, I don't get anything unlocked.
You don't get any unlocks. You technically don't accrue any score for each individual mission. You can still pass the missions, and all the missions are able to be played with the base equipment, right?
Okay.
Like you don't have to have any of the unlocks to do it. It's just that I get, I want to do them all. But now you have to play online to unlock them, but once you've unlocked them, you can play offline.
Oh, okay. Well,
no problem.
That's better.
They also added a couple of other interesting things. Like when a lot of it is small. When you pause the game now, instead of bringing up like usually when you pause the game, it would bring up a separate screen, and now it just like fades literally where you are in the world to a screen, which is good because it means it doesn't have to load a second screen. They added a new assassination thing where if you're hanging at the bottom of a balcony, you can now grab somebody and throw them off the balcony.
Oh, nice.
Of course, they did say that they are taking that out because right now, even if people are watching you do it, the NPCs don't recognize that as like a thing to get upset about. So you can literally just kill somebody by grabbing them and throwing off the thing, and everybody's just like,
Like you have just everybody looking at you, and they're like,
so they're already trying to fix that.
That guy just jumped out of a window. I wonder why.
They also have, as far as aesthetic tweaks go, like there's a sound effect every time you hit a challenge. It'll go like bling, which is great because it means that you don't have to go to the end of you don't have to end the mission to find out if you did the thing that unlocks whatever that thing is. There's also a thing where it crosses out the assassinations that you've already done so that it's easier for you to see what you haven't done yet. A lot of good just getting stuff together. I think that when this game comes out on disc, which is next year,
January,
I think it's going to be on my Game of the Year list. I honestly do, because I have had so much fun with Hitman, but it still comes back to this issue that I was talking with somebody, I've talked with you about, I've talked to a bunch of people about it, where when you're not playing it as an episodic game, like, you don't have nearly as much of the incentive to replay each individual episode to unlock new stuff. And I wonder if, from that perspective, the game is not as good. Like, I've actually even thought about when it was on sale during the Black Friday sale on Steam. It was on sale for like $30, and I thought about buying it again on the PC just to have a fresh play that doesn't have anything unlocked, and to just play one mission at a time and then go through. Anyway, good on you, IO, for continuing to make Hitman a better game. All right, we are over time, so I'm going to start whipping through these things. Square had a huge launch for Final Fantasy 15, as well as Nintendo having a huge launch for Pokemon. Big whoop, right? Both those were probably going to sell a lot. Well, Final Fantasy, I think the thing is that they've been talking about how Final Fantasy is kind of a make or break for the company, because it's kind of a make or break for Final Fantasy, because it's whether or not that 10-year crazy long, crazy detailed development cycle yields enough of a profit for them to keep making games like that in the future, or whether they would rather focus on publishing and turning around quick games like I Am Setsuna, or well, technically Hitman was
or more Just Cause, or
Hitman was Square Enix, right?
Yeah.
Deus Ex. I mean, I think that Square Enix a lot of times is looking at whether they would like to continue to be a big AAA game developer, or whether they would like to just be a publisher, because I feel like they're probably making more money just publishing stuff than these fucking hell cycles of development that they go through to put out a Final Fantasy game. So Pokemon Sun and Moon was going to, that was going to sell like tits no matter
Anyone
what.
who thought that was not going to sell like gangbusters does not know video games.
Yep.
Not in the video game industry.
Stardew Valley is coming to the PS4 and Xbox One in December.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because I never really got a chance to really dig into it. It's also not coming to the Nintendo Wii U. It is coming to the Switch, though.
Yeah, so, not surprised there.
Yep.
That seems like a no-brainer at this point, because the Switch is coming out very soon, and who the fuck cares about the Wii U anymore?
Yep.
As much as I hate to say that.
Me too.
It pains me. It pains me a lot to say that, because I actually really like that console.
As I said earlier, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice has been moved into 2017 for the reasons that I briefly touched on at the beginning.
Was that at the beginning of the podcast, or was that you and me talking before we started recording?
Oh, maybe it was. I'm sorry. If it was, reality is difficult for me. Anyway, so Hellblade, the latest Ninja Theory game, has been delayed. There's a blog up where they actually go into why, and it's actually nice. It's nice to see a developer say, we announced this as early as we could because we wanted everybody to kind of come along with us during the development of the game, and it's taking longer than we thought because we're trying these new techniques, and it's our first game that they're making not under another publisher, so it's taking them longer, and they are pushing it out into 2017. So that is that's that. Kind of sucks. I'm interested in playing that game. Ninja Theory
looks interesting.
Is a weird company. Like, I feel like,
here's the thing. I never played Heavenly Sword, the first game that they were big known for.
Yeah. You never played Twing Twang?
No. I never played because I didn't own a PlayStation at the time.
Oh, sure.
And by the time I did, I just didn't fucking care.
Yeah.
Enslaved, fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I bought that game on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
And just fucking loved it. And it was because of the demo. The demo was so good. I loved Enslaved.
You know, it's funny. Come on, Heavenly Sword is a real fun game.
Yeah.
It's like 4 hours long. Like, you can beat it in a sitting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's basically kind of God of War meets some
I've
action,
heard that.
Yeah, platforming.
And then the DMC Devil May Cry, despite all the bitching about it, I fucking love that game too. I thought it was great. I was actually pleasantly surprised with how good that game was.
Well, sure.
And I thought the level design on it was fucking amazing, especially the nightclub level for DMC Devil May Cry is one of the most fun and entertaining level design. Like, that is a game where I actually stopped and went, oh shit. Level design in this game is a really interesting level, like from all aspects. Now, it's fun to play, it's fun to look at.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, John, that's just because you don't understand Devil May Cry.
Yeah, apparently. You were waiting to say that, weren't you? You were waiting for me to stop talking so that you could say that.
I was waiting for the first pause that I could get.
And this game, what they've announced for this game looks really interesting, and also sounds, the fact that it's a character that's dealing with mental issues, dementia or something.
Yep.
And just that also seems interesting to me, and I can't wait to play it. Like, I'm actually looking forward to it, because while I didn't play Heavenly Sword, every game that they've released since then has just been better.
Yeah.
Than the previous one.
Yep, I agree.
To a point that I'm like, you know what? I'm on board. You could tell me you're releasing Phone Book the video game, and Ninja Theory, you've earned enough credit with me that I will buy that.
Yep, I agree 100%. So another thing I agree 100% with is apparently Ubisoft announced this week that their the Dumb Eagle game, Eagle Flight, Werewolves Within, and Star Trek Bridge Crew are all three of those going to be coming out for all of the VR headsets.
Yeah.
So Sony, the PlayStation VR, the Vive, and the Oculus Rift is going to be coming out for all those. I think that's fan-fucking-tastic. I think at this point in VR development, we need cross-platform experiences where people, I don't think dividing the field into haves and have-nots. I think everybody needs access to as many games as they can get.
Oh, I guess I misunderstood what that announcement was, because I didn't read the full article. I thought they were saying that it's not only cross-platform in that it's going to be on the consoles or be on all the VR platforms, that you'd be able to play the multiplayer on all the platforms.
Like that is also true. Yes.
Okay, so like if I had a PlayStation VR, I could play a game with someone who was playing on a Vive.
Yes. Which for something like Bridge Crew is also...
That is fucking great.
Yeah. I mean, for any of them, for the Eagles, that would be the worst thing is if you went out and you got all this hardware and you hooked it all up and then you're like...
Oh, there's only like 2 other people playing.
I can't play a game because we only got 5 out of the 6 people that we need to play this game.
Because we're the only 5 people that bought it.
Because we're the only 5 people on the planet who bought this dumb Eagle game and that I'm really interested in playing. But I think that's good. I think all that's great.
That's smart.
And yeah. I want VR to succeed, and I feel like having stuff that goes between those different platforms is...
I'm actually like really excited for the Bridge Crew game.
Yeah.
Like I actually kind of like, the more I see of it, the more I'm like, I want to play this game.
Yeah.
I want VR. I want to get a PlayStation VR.
Uh-huh.
I want to play Resident Evil 7. I want to play Star Trek Bridge Crew. I want to get a crew. I want to find other people that have this, and I want to play it, and I want to just have fun with it. I want to.
Well, okay, so I can't give you that experience, but we could play the crew. The crew. It's like half
get the fuck out of my face.
Did you know this week that they released the crew on PC?
Oh, well, good for them.
I'm like, why? Whatever. All right, fine.
Because they could.
And last but certainly not least, Capcom is bringing Street Fighter Christmas-themed DLC, and it's lazy as shit, John. Have you watched this trailer?
No, I have not.
Capcom DLC, basically like they've got a new Christmassy level that looks like it's Frosty Boulevard. Looks like they've taken one of the stages.
It's the street level.
Yeah.
And then they just Christmased it up.
Yep. Now, if you look at it, the other part of this DLC is a bunch of costumes, and every costume is just some kind of like slutty Santa costume. It's just different versions of slutty Santa costume.
Even for fucking Zangief there, man.
Yep.
He's just got slutting it up.
Yep. A big cowboy. Like it's all just red outfits with white trim. Like every single outfit is just a red outfit with white trim on it. Even there's a red bikini with white trim on it. Like some have feathers and some have fur, but it's all kind of exactly the same. Like it looks like exactly the same outfit, or exactly the same at least motif, where it's just a bunch of Santas.
Yeah.
But who knows? There's so few Christmas things coming out this year.
You know, I'm surprised you didn't talk about a news item. That you didn't bring up a news item that I thought was.
Oh shit!
It's not a big. It's not a big news item. In my mind, it's not actually a huge news item, but it's the Polygon's article for this item had the most troll bait headline I've ever seen in my entire life.
What was it?
So, Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Undead Nightmare are going to be available on the PlayStation View or whatever their streaming service is. PlayStation Now, sorry. Yeah. So it's going to be available on PlayStation Now, I think, this month, December, sometime this month, which is great. I've gotten. I mean, just to briefly interject, I've got really tired. There was like 5 different articles this week that was like, this is now backwards compatible with the Xbox One. This is now available on the Xbox on the streaming PlayStation Now service, and I'm just like, these are all old video games. I don't care. Well, what Polygon did, they said Red Dead Redemption now playable on PC, and then when you click on the article, it says, if you have PlayStation Now.
Dick. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's a fuck you dick shit right there.
Yeah, like it was like all the article, all the links to it. It's like, you guys are troll baiting people, man. That's some fun. Some people's hearts like got all up like excited, and then they read the article and they're like, oh, because PlayStation Now is available to play on the PC. You can play it on your console or your PC.
Yep.
And I think it's also available to play through like certain smart TVs and things like that.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just like, that was like, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's going to piss some people off with a headline like that.
Yeah. That's some dick right there. That'd be like,
I think they changed it to actually include the, if you have PlayStation Now in the headline of the article, but it's like, Red Dead Redemption is available on PC.
Yeah. ...
if you have.
It'd be like if I wrote a headline for Rage that's like, Half-Life 3 is available right now, and then below you click past the headline. It's like, in a dream I had last night. Man, you guys wouldn't believe this dream. It was great. I got to play Half-Life 3 for hours. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Like, I saw that, and I was just like, I shared that on my Facebook. I was like, well, that's some trolliness going on. What the fuck?
Yeah. Let it never be said that
news articles will.
Oh, goddamn, those clickbait headlines! They'll get you. They'll get you. I've kind of stopped. I've tried to stop, but boy.
But I do think that's actually a good thing to go on the PlayStation Now, because I know that there are going to be people that might actually think about giving that a try.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Might actually give that service a try because they really want to play Red Dead Redemption on their PS4, or maybe they don't have a PS4, maybe they just have a PC and they're like, oh shit, I can finally play Red Dead Redemption on my PC, even though it's through this streaming service.
Yeah.
I think that's great. It's already backwards compatible on the Xbox One, which is great. So
just go get yourself a PlayStation 3. What do they cost? $10? You can get one for $10. $15?
Probably like $100 to $200.
No. Steal it from your friend. Take your friend's Xbox that he's not using anymore.
Come over to Jeff's house.
No, don't come to my house. I don't give out my address.
Jeff will give you his PlayStation 3.
What? Fuck you.
And by give, I mean you have to punch him in the face and take it. But
you can steal it from me. You'll get my PlayStation 3. You pry it from my cold dead hands. All right, folks. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a minute with emails. Oh, we're back. Yeah, and actually, in the beginning, I misspoke. It's the Video Game Awards are actually happening while we're recording this.
Yeah.
So we were just watching the pre-show, and they just announced this Bulletstorm HD
full clip edition.
Yeah, which I think we already kind of knew was going to happen.
That was leaked back at E3.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Gearbox is publishing it, and apparently there's a way you could play through the whole thing with Duke Nukem.
So Gearbox has started a new publishing division called Gearbox Publishing, in which they're going to publish other developers' games. Like that's the whole purpose of Gearbox Publishing.
Yeesh.
And the first game they're going to publish is Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition.
Okay.
And if you can pre-order it right now digitally on all consoles.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he just means PS4 and Xbox One and PC.
Right.
And if you pre-order it, you will get the pre-order bonus of being able to play the whole game as Duke Nukem.
Why?
Voice acted and everything.
Why? Why? There was no reason to shove Duke Nukem into Bulletstorm.
I think it's just because they wanted to do. They were like, "Hey, what can we do that's special?" To...
I mean, yeah, we saw a trailer for it, and like the one thing that stood out to me was that the character model for Duke Nukem that was in there looked like they pulled the direct asset out of Duke Nukem Forever. Like it looked gross.
It looked like shit compared to the rest of the game.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, like I was saying to John that there's only so much you can do to fuck up Bulletstorm, right? As long as the port isn't terrible, which if People Can Fly are actually doing it, I feel like
they own the rights to it. They got the rights back.
And you know what? I'm really excited because I'm hoping that if People Can Fly, they got the rights back, they put this out, there's enough people that never played it. Do you know that we're on the Wikipedia page?
Oh, yeah.
Jason and I are on there as this is one of the most underrated games that's ever been created. Everybody should play it. Fuck you guys. Thanks to whoever did that. I hope you're listening right now. But if they make enough money off of that, I'm hoping that maybe we can see a Bulletstorm too. No, you know what? I don't even care. I want People Can Fly to put out another game, any game. I like Bulletstorm 2, but I don't need Bulletstorm 2. It could just as well be a new IP because People Can Fly are one of those companies where it's like they made a fantastic game that did something that has not really been done since.
It's fun and
all
original
the
and
the skill kills.
Had a lot of curse words.
Yeah. Well, good story, great characters, funny curse words. You get to control a Godzilla monster. You get to, there's a bunch of stuff. Sushi Dick, Robot Satan and Captain Chili Pepper, or Admiral Chili Pepper, or whatever his name is, Admiral Serrano. If you haven't ever checked out Bulletstorm and you're new to Rage Select, go watch. Jason and I played all the way through that game, and the fact that they instantly got then co-opted, or not co-opted, but they instantly then got tasked to make a Gears of War game that nobody really wanted.
Yeah.
Just so that they could have another Gears of War game, just so that Microsoft and Epic could have another Gears of War game out. I think that kind of sucks because it means that they got pulled off of they got put together, they made this game, it was a great game, and then they got pulled on to doing this other thing, and then they've kind of been in limbo since then, right? I think let me pull up their Wikipedia page.
I think that's the last game they released.
I want to see if it's one of those things where if they're like Raven, where they put out a game, but then they ended up working on the multiplayer mode for 2 or 3 other games in the meantime. So they did so they started with Painkiller Battle Out of Hell, Painkiller Hell Wars, Gears of War, and Gears of War 2. Okay, so they did the PC port of Gears of War.
Yeah.
And then they did
Gears of War 2.
They co-developed Gears of War 2. They did a game called Duty Calls the Calm Before the Storm. I've never heard. I don't know what the fuck that is. And then they did Bulletstorm, Gears of War Judgment. Oh, and then Epic has them working on Fortnite.
Yeah.
Which I installed. I was trying to clear off space on my gaming partition, and I realized that I still had Shadow Complex installed. And I hate it when developers do this, where I have to open the Epic game manager in order to uninstall it. So I did that, and I was like, oh yeah, Fortnite is still there. I can still install it. I got beta access to it a long time ago, and I was like, this seems interesting, but goddamn, Fortnite has just been
limbo.
Yeah, just out there. I think they're still working on it. They were like, oh, it's beta 9.6 or something, and I'm just like, are you guys still doing I haven't even seen a trailer for this thing since the original trailer that came out. Anyway, I was thinking about talking about a little bit about Dishonored 2, but I still haven't just finished it. So let's just get into the questions. We already went long on the news part today. mail@ragesite.com is the email address, and our first question this week comes in from Ryan, and Ryan is talking about my favorite topic, pre-orders.
No.
Dear Jeff and John, Ryan again with a question that came to mind after listening to the previous podcast. In the past few episodes, you've discussed positive and negative aspects to pre-ordering games. I tend to only pre-order a few games each year at Target, which requires a $1 deposit, and in return, I get a $5 gift card when I purchase the game. I know it's not the greatest incentive to pre-order a game, but I figure I can use it on other things. So my question for you is, when it comes to pre-ordering games, do you dislike the idea of paying a full $60 for a game that you won't have for months/years and may turn out to be bad? If so, do you think it's less risky to be investing in $1 on a pre-order? Thanks for reading this email and keep making great videos, Ryan. What do you think, John? I don't even know. I mean, we talk all the time about this. You seem to be a little bit less anti-pre-order than I am.
I am of the camp that I don't always have money at all times.
Right.
So when I have money, excess money that is not designated to go towards a bill or food or whatever.
Sure. You want to lock it in.
I want to lock that in.
Yeah.
Like, I want to lock in that I'm going to get this game on X day.
Sure.
And if I can do that and pay the full amount, then pre-orders are okay in my book, because that's essentially paying for it when I have the money.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of in the same boat as you. It's like, I don't, pre-order bonuses, who the fuck cares?
Well, okay, so my I'm going to tell you,
with the exception of certain games.
I'm going to tell you, Ryan, what you've described about just putting down $1 to pre-order a thing, that's fair. That's way better than what I normally think of, which is the whole, you put down the whole price of it.
Well, and even then, I mean, most companies don't let you just put down $1. Like, most of them, you have to put down, if it's like a regular edition of a game, you put $5 down. If it's like a special edition, you have to put either, depending on the amount of the edition, it's either $10 or $20. And things like, you have to put a certain percentage of the full game price down to pre-order it.
So let me explain, because it's maybe been a little bit of time since I have. Let me just go into really briefly why I hate pre-orders so much. So, unfortunately, I feel like the way that pre-orders started, at least from my point of view, and somebody can show me evidence that this isn't the case, but that it was GameStop. Yeah. And that GameStop didn't want to stock games. They didn't want to order. They'd be like, oh, man, this game is going to be popular. Let's get 50 copies because we're going to need a lot. Or let's get 20 copies because we're not going to. Let's get 4 because who cares about the new World of Final Fantasy, right? Let's get a couple copies, and if we need more, we can order them or whatever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel like that in the beginning, that was a fairly reasonable thing where they're like, hey, sometimes games sell out, and if you want to make sure that you get a game, put down some money ahead of time and we'll essentially reserve it for you, right? That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately that mutated, and it became this thing where for a while there, not anymore because I do most of my game shopping at a GameStop, but for a while there, they started to get into this thing where they would only order the amount of games that they got for pre-order. And I find that to be, I don't like that because it imbalances where the power of your consumer dollar should be. Is that you're now being locked into a system where if you don't pay for a game sight unseen up front, you can't get a copy of it. Now, that's one of the greatest things that's happened with digital distribution is that, like, fuck you. Like, I can buy a copy off the PlayStation Network, and it's not the best. I can't loan it out to my friends. There's a long download time or whatever. But, like, when Vice City came out, I remember that I had to go run it all over town to find a copy of it. When Command & Conquer Generals came out, I had to drive all over Austin. I drove to, like, 6 different stores to find a copy of it because nobody was stocking enough of it, etc. And then once the game publishers got into this idea of trying to lock you into making a pre-order with giving you these kind of ephemeral pre-order bonuses, the main problem that I have comes from the idea that you're giving somebody money before there's even a way to evaluate whether the thing you're paying for is any good or not. It's basically they've hyped you to the point where you're willing to buy sight unseen a thing which could be good or could be bad. It would be different in my mind if we lived in a society, and this goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, where you could return a game if it was shit. You open up, you go to the store, buy Final Fantasy 15, bring it home, open it up, put it in your PlayStation, play it, go like, no, this game isn't any good. I don't want this game anymore. So you put it back in.
As long as you're within like 7 days of the purchase, you could take it back.
I mean, a lot of other industries, fucking retail stores will let you return stuff after 30 days. You know, I know there's some retail stores out there that are basically their policy is just like, you can always return it because we want people to have. I used to work at the Container Store here in Austin, and they actually even had a thing where it's like you can return anything anytime. The point where I was there one day when somebody bought like a little file cabinet. They had taken it home. They'd obviously had it for 2 or 3 years, spray painted it a different color. There was a huge dent in the side where somebody had kicked it. They still let them return it. Like, there are other industries where you're able to do that. Now, I understand that with video games, you can abuse that, right? Because if it's within 7 days, I can bring home a game and beat it in 2 days and then take it and get my money back for it. But that's the problem, is that when you pre-order a thing, your dollar, I keep saying this, I've said this for 5 years, your dollar is the only weapon that you have against a lot of what's happening in the video game industry. Like, you can complain online all you want, but they don't care. I mean, you know, whatever. So, like a Mass Effect 3, they might eventually get around to putting out some DLC that fixes that to mollify the community.
Well, the same could be said for movies and things like that. It's like the only way you can vote for like you're tired of remakes for movies. Well, then fucking don't go see the remakes.
Yes.
You don't like what the movie version of your favorite video game property, you think it looks like shit, then don't go see it. Don't pay for it. They'll stop making shitty versions of it and yes, they may go, oh, well, it's obviously video game movies don't sell. Or maybe someone will go, well, what if it's just that the movies that we're making are not good? What if we make a good version of that movie? Yep. And then if you think it looks good, then go see it, you know?
Oh, last week's story about how poorly Call of Duty Infinite Warfare sold is like all the people who hate Call of Duty, the only way that franchise is either going to get canceled altogether or there's going to be any movement done on it is if people stop showing up to buy it in record numbers. And unfortunately, pre-ordering is real kind of pernicious because it's like you've paid for it before it even is a thing. Was it you that I saw on Facebook that was like people are pre-ordering Death Stranding and we have
someone else like one of our rage selectors who I happen to also be friends with on Facebook. I think D Hood basically posted it's like, why are people pre-ordering Death Stranding? We know nothing about the game.
We know nothing about it.
And I responded with, because there are people who will buy anything with Kojima's name on it regardless. Right. Again, he is one of those developers, one of those singular game celebrities that can say, I'm going back to something I said earlier, could say, I'm releasing Phone Book the video game, and there are people that will be like, I don't fucking care, it's Kojima, I'm buying it.
Dude, I hear the stealth mechanics in Phone Book are so good. They're so good.
Literally, it's a game where you press a button and a guy reads off the name and the number.
Oh, it's so brilliant. It's a sequel to Desert Bus, but you just read the phone. No. But that's what I don't like about pre-orders, and that's why I talk about why I hate pre-orders. Okay, so and especially now, because we live in a world where outside of, unless it's hardware or unless like the pre-order bonus, see, I even think that if the pre-order bonus was really good, I think that's even more of a reason not to pre-order it, because you were then telling the game industry that that's a good thing, that they should be withholding content from you.
It also sucks because it became such a prevalent thing, because previously it was just GameStop that did pre-orders. And then now Best Buy does pre-orders. Now Walmart does pre-orders. Now Target does pre-orders. Amazon. Everyone does pre-orders. Amazon does pre-orders. And it's even gotten to a point where if a game does not have a certain amount of pre-orders across the board, companies will consider that game a failure before it's even released.
Before it's even finished at that point.
Because there are not enough pre-orders.
Yeah.
And that is sad to me.
Yeah. No, it's fucked up. It's a fucked up system, and like I said, I think that GameStop at least saw the writing on the wall, because I've been able to walk into my GameStop and buy pretty much every game that I need, or at the very least, I can check online to see if there's a copy. Like, do I need to go to that one over there instead of this one over here? Because like when I went to go buy Xenoverse, the one that was close to my house didn't have any of that. But you can go online, you can find out which one does have it, and you just go to that one. The only time I feel like you might need to pre-order a thing is if you're looking at something like that dumb NES Classic or the PlayStation VR. But even that, the GameStop I went to buy Xenoverse, I was like, you guys got those PSVRs? And they're like, oh, yeah. We got like 2. Like, do you want one? And I was like, no.
Yeah. Now, having said that, what is it? The fucking NES Classic. You're fucked there. That's.
But that's fucking Nintendo.
That's Nintendo. That's their fault.
Like, okay, so yeah, here's the thing. If you want a Nintendo Switch on the day that it comes out, I would recommend going and pre-ordering
it. Yeah.
Like, that's the only hardware is one of the few things, because hardware is limited by the amount of physical units that are there. And I know that not everybody likes digital, but if you're looking for a game and the game was pressed in such a small amount, like let's say it's something like something weird like Galgun, right, or whatever, you can at least have the option of buying that digitally and still being able to play the game on day one. Yes, you're going to have to wait for it to download, and yes, I understand that people don't have internet connections in a lot of places, and yes, I understand all that. The problem is that when we live in a system where pre-ordering is so prevalent, then you do not have the power. You're giving up your consumer power to go, I'm going to wait for that new Call of Duty to come out. I'm going to read the reviews and watch some videos on the internet. And if it's good, then I'm going to go buy it 3 days after it comes out. I'm going to exercise just a little bit of like self-control, and I'm going to wait until it comes out, and then I'm going to go buy it.
But I gotta have it now.
What's that?
But I gotta have it now. Like, I gotta go home and pre-order Dead Rising 4.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta have it now.
Oh, no, Bulletstorm. We heard about it 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I need to go online and pre-order Bulletstorm.
I need Duke Nukem.
I need that Duke Nukem. That's the other thing that you guys got to remember, is that if you do want to pre-order a thing, I feel like a lot of times, especially if you're talking about retail pre-order, they get a certain number in, and if it's anything that's not niche, if it's not like an NIS-published weird Japanese game, or it's not something small, a lot of times you can wait until the day before to pre-order.
Yeah.
Like, you can even wait to see if early reviews come out and then pre-order it the day before. Like,
there are some times where, I can't remember what it was, but there was one game that I literally walked in the day before it was set to release, when they were doing a midnight launch, and walked in and said, "Hey, can I pre-order this?" And they were like, "Yeah." I mean, yeah, we haven't come anywhere near the amount of copies we ordered.
Yeah.
So if you want to pre-order it, and then you just come in at midnight and pick it up.
Yep.
It's like, cool. See you later. Here's my money. And I'll be back in like 3 hours.
When I went to the GameStop by my house on the day that the NES Classic released, I didn't show up when they opened. I went at like 3 in the afternoon because
that's your own fault.
Hung over. Right, but they had a thing on the door. They had a thing on the door that was a picture of it that was like the NES Classic, and then somebody had written below it in marker like, "We got in 6 of these. We're going to sell them until we run out." Like, just to let people know. And so, like, I honestly could have gone in there the day before and been like, I want to pre-order this, and one of those 6 would have belonged to me. That's all I had to do, and I didn't, because, again, it's a niche thing, and I want one, and if I could find one and I didn't have to pre-order it, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
You could look at it on the show. But if I can't get one, well, come on. I played all those NES games. Right, so.
And for me personally, as not a website mogul like you, for me it's like, well,
no,
all the games that
Mongol, from the Superman comics.
Okay, you're gonna pit all of us in a battle arena. Yeah, battle world.
Website Mongol. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but no. It's one of those things where it's like, for me, it's like, oh man, if I walked into a store and saw that and I had the money, I would totally buy it.
Yeah.
But you know what? All the games that are on it that I want to play, I own.
Yeah.
And maybe not even as a physical like a physical NES copy of it, but I might own on the virtual console on the fucking Wii U or Wii or
also
DS.
Let us not sit here and not like it. Let us not lie to ourselves. You want to get that thing, you want to hook it up, it's going to be cool looking, it's going to be new, you're going to start, oh yeah, cool, and then you're going to play Super C, and then you're going to be like, yeah, I'm done with Super C. Let's play a little Castlevania. You're going to wear it out in 2 days. And then it's going to go on your shelf, and you're probably not going to play it anymore, because if you really had a hankering to play those NES games, you would have found a way to do that by now. Like, it's not that difficult to get old NES games if that's what you're looking for.
Having said that, I do own a copy of Punch-Out on every platform that it's ever been released for.
Oh, yeah?
digitally or whatnot, and including some platforms that it has not been released for.
Ooh.
Like I back when I had a PSP,
a Toyota Celica? Or?
No, like back when I had a PSP, for example, I had an emulator on it and had fucking Punch Out on it, just so I could play Punch Out on the go, because I fucking love Punch Out.
So anyway, that's pre-orders. Next one comes in from Paul C., who says, "Dear Jeff and John, knowing Jeff to have a love for video game music, hopefully, or this may be awkward, are there any video game soundtracks that you and your co-host like listening to? If this is too easy of a question, how about favorite villain theme songs that have stood out to you and stayed with you all this time? Be it the bad guys for video game, movies, music themes, or music cues, like the music cues and themes for Jaws when he appears to be getting closer, or the strum for when a creature, or the sound, it says stum, but I don't know what word is actually supposed to be there, for when a creature is on screen. A silly song that I enjoyed and remember is the Team Rocket battle music, and how each Pokemon game improved on it and makes it seem more enjoyable. Anyway, thanks. Thank you for all the hard work, and with much music love, Paul C. P.S. Are you enjoying Christmas music as much as I am, nonstop playing everywhere?
Well, you should know the answer to that question.
I believe we've already gone over that, Paul. See, so I figure this is one we haven't talked about in a while.
Yeah,
and I was actually a little bit inspired because this is really interesting. So in Final Fantasy 15, you spend all this time driving around in the Regalia, right? And you go to these stores, and sometimes the stores will sell you for like 100 gil the soundtrack from previous Final Fantasy games. So like I've been driving around, listening to you talking about villain themes, listening to One Wing Angel off of the Final Fantasy 7 soundtrack, and some of the Final Fantasy 1 kind of pixel stuff. They have the soundtracks to Dissidia and Dissidia Duodecim, so those are like remix rock and roll versions of like the Four Fiends from Final Fantasy 4. But I'll tell you one that I always forget about when this question comes up is the battle music from Final Fantasy 13, which, if you don't know what that is, you got to go look it up and listen to it. But it's this really catchy kind of orchestral, good sounding thing. And it really, every time I hear it, I fucking love it. Like I listen to it in every battle sequence in all of Final Fantasy 13, and I never got tired of listening to it.
Yeah.
Also, I will say that because we're on an RPG roll, there's a song called "Reach Out for the Truth" that is the battle music from Persona 4 that I have heard literally hundreds and hundreds of times, and I fucking love it. Like I'll just go listen to that song on the internet because it's great.
For me, if we're talking about like retro soundtracks that I have listened to and still listen to,
sure.
I fucking love the Mega Man 2 soundtrack.
Okay.
Like it is literally one of my all-time favorite 8-bit soundtracks of any 8-bit game from the NES era and even Super NES era. It is my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
I love it when they're like, those bands that cover like retro game music. I love it when they cover those games. Same with Punch Out. Punch Out's another fucking favorite of mine for retro ones. But Mega Man 2 soundtrack is just fucking bee's knees. I love it when bands like the Megas did their album for cover of where they actually put lyrics to it and made it this fucking awesome, almost rock opera to it. Fucking great. Transistor is actually a soundtrack that is on my that is like on my Spotify playlist that I actually there's like songs from Transistor. I fucking love that soundtrack.
Bastion's
a good one.
Great. In fact, if you've never played Bastion before, just go online and look up the song Brusher Patrol. That's a fucking great song. That's my favorite song on that soundtrack.
Yeah. Fez is another really good soundtrack. Despite what you may think about the guy who made the game or the game itself,
right? The
soundtrack is fucking killer.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Like I like a lot of really good soundtracks. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure.
I got a couple more if you wanted time to think. I was actually just thinking all of Harry Gregson Williams stuff from the Metal Gear franchise is super, super good. All that is orchestral. It's funny because Bloodborne, it's the DLC that does it for me. So Lady Maria's theme and the theme of the big horseman. God, fuck is his name, are my favorites off of the Bloodborne soundtrack is from the DLC. And then Dark Souls 3 kind of falls down, and Dark Souls 2 is okay, but Dark Souls 1 has some really memorable music in it. And it's for whatever reason, like people might say it's like, oh, here's the Ornstein and Smo music, or here's this music. But the one that always comes up in my mind when I think of it is, you remember when we fought Pinwheel?
Yeah.
They got 3 heads or whatever. It's got this real kind of like melodica sounding, kind of like creepy, dark soundtrack that really does that, and then does it for me anyway. And then I would be remiss if I didn't recommend, as always, and it's been long enough. Thank you so much, Paul, for reminding me that I'm going to go listen to it as soon as we're done here. Simon Vicklin's Bionic Commando, his remix of all of the Bionic Commando music for Bionic Commando Rearmed was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I fucking love that. I love that track.
I love the Legend of Zelda music from all the Zelda games, stuff like that. I'm also a big fan of video game remix, like OC Remix, all their like people who remix them into other genres and things like that.
If you're in the mood for westerns, Outlaws by LucasArts from back in the old days has a real killer kind of Sergio Leone inspired. And Red
Dead Redemption soundtrack is fucking awesome. I have a few songs from that also on my playlist. Like there's
the one that they use in the Red Dead trailer is great.
Yeah,
with the horns and everything in it.
Like I fucking love, and I love the fact that Spotify now within the last year or so has started like making a big push to get video game soundtracks on there.
Okay.
Like they even have a video game soundtrack section now.
Oh, cool.
Especially if you're accessing Spotify on the PlayStation, like it actually says, here's a section specifically for video game themed music, whether it be actual soundtracked or inspired by or just video game sounding. Is all cool. Great. His second question about like what theme, like boss theme or villain theme.
Sure.
Going back to Mega Man 2, Metal Man. The Metal Man theme is like, that's always stuck in my head, truthfully.
Fair enough.
Because it's kind of funky and kind of it's interesting.
I have to throw into a real like I try to rack my brain for like what villain music comes immediately to mind. The music from Super Mario Brothers when you're in the castle levels at the very end. That's some iconic villain music right there. I'm trying to think of. I don't know. That's a pretty good chunk. Do you got anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, I was trying to. I mean, I thought
Destiny's got some good music too. I'm not a big fan of Destiny, but
I was trying to think of like something that wasn't just like. I mean, you could also say soundtracks that include like actual non-video game music, like you know, fucking Brutal Legend, or even like.
I was trying to avoid those. Go to with original. The fucking over dramatic as shit Max Payne 2 theme is always fun.
That's always a good one.
I remember I had there was an intro that I did. It was that Loading Bar. That might have been Loading Bar when we did Max Payne 3, where I was just doing a voiceover and I had that playing. Oh no, it was like Jason and I talking in the little Loading Bar thing, and I was talking really dramatically, and Jason was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And every time that my character started talking again, I restarted the dramatic Max Payne 2 music. It was pretty fun. All right, let's move on. We could probably sit here all day and talk about good stuff.
Video game music is awesome.
Yep, it is. Joe writes in and says, "Jeff, professor of Dark Souls study at Rage Select University, greetings." And John.
Nice. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I didn't write the email. I'm just reading it. I recently listened to a podcast where they lamented the lack of realism in space movies. Their watermark was 2001, A Space Odyssey, a film I hate, not because it portrays space travel as long and boring as it realistically is, but does so without any interesting characters that I give a shit about. Also, that 20-minute ending doesn't seem exactly science-based, but I guess I'm not educated enough to know. So, should games be more realistic and hard science fiction more than they are now? Should Mass Effect Andromeda have 60 real-time days when traveling from one planet to the next? I'm just going to answer that right now and say no. Should the Prey reboot not have gross monsters to shoot, but complex construction and repair of space station for 7 to 8 hours? I could see if a game is going for that realism of actual outer space, then it makes sense to do so in its mechanics, but I guess it just seems boring and dull, as though it is a moral responsibility for games, and I guess even movies, to be judged not on their craft, but their scientific accuracy. Thoughts? And that's from Joe. Sounds like Joe is listening to the Asshole Stick Up Their Butt podcast.
Called Rage Select?
No. We're the asshole stick out of the butt podcast.
Oh, okay. We're just asshole.
Right.
We're just asshole podcast.
Just puckered anus. That's. I'm going to change the name. Rage Select, the puckered anus of the internet. Well, no, it sounds like it sounds like, what kind of asshole would you have to be like, oh man, I couldn't watch that Wing Commander movie because but that's not how space works. It's like, God, fuck you. Or, people holding up the one I can think of is people holding up what Neil deGrasse Tyson during Gravity talking about, like, well, that's not how it actually works. And I'm just like, well, if they did how it actually works, it wouldn't have been a fun movie, right?
Yeah.
It was a movie.
Yeah, well, even he said that. He's like, it may not have been, scientifically accurate, and here's why it wasn't. Here's where it's different. But having said that, still a great movie.
Also, it's worth pointing out that, John Wick is an unrealistic representation of what
you go fuck yourself. Keanu Reeves can do all of that. He will murder everyone.
I was watching
even though he is the nicest guy in Hollywood.
Any number of movies where people get shot, and there's movies where people get shot in the stomach and then die in 2 seconds. And I'm like, you know how long it takes to die from getting shot in the guts? Like days. Painful, screaming days of agony. And movies are just like, bleh. Like I got shot once in the stomach. Avenge me, bleh. Like, no, that's not how that works. Like, so
I don't believe you. Let's test that theory.
Oh no! Ow! Ah, my guts! Now you have to smell what I had for lunch. Ouch. See, it's gross. Or let's just go back to an easy one: is what exploding cars? Cars don't explode
unless it's what was it
unless it's a Samsung Galaxy 7. Yeah,
inside the car,
inside of the car. Or there was one. This comes directly from my go-to, the old Cracked podcast. True Lies. The movie True Lies.
Yeah.
Right. The part in True Lies where Jamie Lee Curtis drops the gun and it bounces down the steps and shoots all the terrorists.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
They're like gun companies spend millions of dollars where people just drop guns all day
to make sure that doesn't happen.
To specifically make sure that there's no way that a gun can go off when it's dropped, because that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And yet, like what's the other example they show? Hot Fuzz. He like throws that shotgun, and when it hits the ground, it goes off and shoots the guy's foot. There's specific things to stop that from ever happening, and yet, whatever. Also, if that gun was just going off like crazy down the steps, I always want to see another cut of True Lies where and then the last person it shoots is just Jamie Lee Curtis gets shot in the face because just random gun violence. But I don't know. I feel like whenever people get to everybody has their own level of like, oh, it needs to be, if it's not X realistic, then it's too unrealistic for me. But I watch movies about guys with spider powers and,
What are you talking about? You can totally get spider powers if you're bitten by a radioactive spider.
No, I think you just get like mega cancer at that point. Like,
no. It's totally true. Like I know a guy who, I got a guy at work who says he got bit by a radioactive spider and totally has Spider-Man powers.
And he still has Spider-Man powers. And he works at your job?
No.
He works in a cubicle?
Well, he's got to have a secret identity.
He's the worst Spider-Man.
He's got to have a day job outside of saving people.
Really?
And there aren't a lot of tall buildings in Austin for him to web swing off of.
Yeah, that's true. He can kind of just go around the Frost Tower over and over again.
Yeah, it's like he's in the wrong city for it. I told him he needs to move, but he doesn't want to. But he really likes Austin.
We all went to sleep and we woke up the next day and there was just like all these webs hanging off the side of one building in Austin because it's the only one tall enough to do any of that bullshit. I don't know, Joe. It sounds like I don't agree with the contention that things need to be more realistic because
I think they just need to be interesting and need to be fun to play.
Exactly.
Like, if you can give me a game that is, to bring back something we talked about earlier, Bulletstorm.
Sure.
Fully crazy, not based on realism in any way, shape, or form.
Not even a little bit.
None of the stuff you can do in that game could be done in real life, except for butcher the English language with various curse words.
Sure.
Even that is unrealistic.
Yep.
You know what?
I'm going to kill your dick. I'm going to kill your dick, John. Is that what the lady?
Something like that.
And he's like, I don't even understand what that means.
Yeah, but still, like, that's a fun fucking game.
Sure.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. I want games where I can, where people can fly. I want games where people don't fly. I want people that can swim and breathe underwater. I want games where people can't breathe underwater. Yep. I want all that shit as long as it's fun. Make it super realistic. I don't fucking care. As long as what the gameplay you're providing me in that realistic situation is fun to play and engaging, then great.
Yep. Yeah, it kind of goes back to, let's say that you want to play Freelancer, for example.
Yeah.
Warp gates, totally. Everything's too close together. Nobody even talks about that in space everything is way too far apart for it to be fun in a thing. But, like, Mass Effect, we're going to turn on the magic thing. We're going to jump over here. We're going to do our thing. We're going to blast a bunch of stuff. Great. In that case, the lack of realism has stopped me spending 60 hours driving from one part of the galaxy to the other. On the other hand, Kerbal Space Program is incredibly fun, and that's a much more realistic game, but I don't want Kerbal Space Program in my Mass Effect. I want there to be a Kerbal Space Program, and I want there to be a Mass Effect, and I do not want the two rubbing up against each other, because that would be boring. So, but yeah.
Also, the characters would look really weird.
Oh, man, Kerbal Shepherd! Oh, I want to be little Kerbal Shepherd so bad. Little Kerbal Shepherd, yep. All right, this next one comes in from Cameron, and Cameron says, "Hey, Jeff and sexy-ass co-host John. My question is this. And I think that Cameron, I think we've answered this before, but it never hurts to take a fresh look at stuff.
I do have a sexy ass.
You do. He does.
There, we've had a fresh look at it.
My question is this. Do you think that over-advertising or over-promotion for a product hurts the sales of the product or people's perception of that product? It seems to me that in order to build this wave of hype up to the release of a movie or a game, companies tend to advertise their products months or even years before the release of said product. Batman v Superman is a great example of this, where the movie was being advertised almost every day up until this past March, and more people hated the movie more than liked it, which in return hurt the sales of the movie. With No Man's Sky, that game was being hyped so much that it was doomed to fall on its face shortly after release because of the over-promotion for a game that really should be a little indie title, just my opinion. Even with Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, the crazy amount of advertising that Activision does every year didn't seem to help this time around, as this particular title might be the worst-selling one of all the Call of Duty games. Thanks for my question. And Dick's out for Rage Select? Yeah, fair enough. And that's from Cameron. So you and I have talked about this before. I think that the people that do this are in a rough position. I think that doing marketing for a game is a real rough proposition.
Yeah, it's very hard because I don't think there's any right way to do it.
Yep.
Like, there's different ways to market, different levels of marketing, and I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't... Should some games benefit from being shown early on? Mm-hmm. Some games don't.
Yep.
Some games,
Some games are great if they just... let me put it this way. Undertale had 0 commercials on the internet. That was a game that, because it was a clever little game, just popped up on Steam one day. Five Nights at Freddy's they don't advertise the next Five Nights at Freddy's game on YouTube. I mean, they may put out a trailer, but Scott, whatever his name is, he puts out a trailer for the next Five Nights at Freddy's game and then releases the game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Announces the game and then releases the game within 3 days of each other.
Yeah.
And there are other things that don't even have a trailer, that never even really get anything that's big, that still turn out to be really good games. I think that it is true that if you whip people up into a frenzy about your game, that you better be able to deliver. And I think that's one of the main problems that we're seeing, is that the advertising arm of the video game industry has become so good at whipping people into a crazy frenzy that I feel like we have at least 5 or 6 different examples from this year alone of people got whipped into a frenzy and there was no possible way for the game to meet the hype that they had created for it.
And I don't even think it was fully the hype of, like, for example, trailers for that. It was a lot of hype just everywhere.
Well, as we talked about No Man's Sky, I mean, the trailers for No Man's Sky, you could say, were a little deceitful, but most of what I feel like people are upset about with No Man's Sky is interviews with Sean Murray.
Yeah.
Not necessarily trailers, that came out. But I think that the other side, Cameron, of that coin is that if you aren't really aggressive with your trailers, you might get lost in the mix.
Yeah.
I mean, like Titanfall put out far too many trailers for me. We were talking about one every week all the way up to release of that game. Hell, there's one this week. The game's already out.
Yeah.
But if you don't keep reminding people that your game exists, if everybody, let me put it this way, if all of the other people in your same space are putting out a trailer every week and you're not, to try to keep from generating unreasonable expectations of hype, you may find yourself in a position where your game isn't selling as well just because not enough people even know that your game exists because there's so many games coming out all the time.
And, and mind you, I haven't heard this happen recently, and I can't remember the last game that I did hear this happen. There's some instances where, like, a company is like, hey, let's advertise this game now and see what type of interest it drums up, because if this trailer comes out and everyone goes, then fuck it, we're not going to do it, we'll work on something else.
Yep.
But if people go, man, that trailer was really cool, that game looks cool, I want to play that game, then we know that we're on the right track and we need to fucking do this. Sometimes early advertisement is not just a hey, we want to let you know about our game, but also in some rare cases, especially with smaller developers, it's a hey, does anyone care what we're doing?
Yep.
And should we continue working on this?
A great example is, I feel like if that Hello Neighbor trailer had flopped, Tiny Build might have just been like, maybe we'll just put this on the back burner and work on it, when we can, instead of aggressively putting out alphas and betas. But a lot of this also comes back, Cameron, to a thing that I think I first remember being exposed to on one of it might have been the Avatar review that Plinkett did.
Yeah.
It was the Plinkett Avatar review. They talked about, we live in an age where people have a crazy number of options for entertainment. And in a lot of ways, it's like, if you can't put out a Death Stranding trailer where everybody's just like, oh my God, right? Like that everybody just fucking, what does it mean? And when's it coming out? Oh, that's Norman Reedus' butt. Then you might be better served by being like Mafia 3. Like, we're just going to put out one trailer every week. We're going to put out one about the guns. We're going to put one about the city. We're going to put one about the cars. We're going to put one about this thing. That if your trailers aren't just lighting up the world because you don't have the same amount of interest, then you might need to just go with quantity just to keep people reminded, but go out and buy the game. Go out and get it. So, I don't know. It's hard because there is no magic formula, right? There is no formula for how much hype is too much hype. How do you even measure hype, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was imagining some marketing person, like, watching the hits on the trailer for the next game they're putting out, and they're just like, please don't go over 3 million. Please don't go over 3 million. Please don't go. Shit. Guys, it went over 3 million. We're too hyped now. It's too much hype. We got to...
No trailers are talking about the game for at least 6 months now.
That's right.
If we had been under 3 million, we could have continued talking about it and maybe release a trailer next month. But now that we're over 3 million, we got to dial it down.
Yeah.
We got to get that hype down a little bit.
I mean, for my money, I didn't even know that there were people. I mean, I knew there were people that were excited for, like, keep going back to a recent example, No Man's Sky. But it wasn't until they delayed it, and then the guy that reported that got death threats, and then they started to send death threats to Sean Murray, that I was aware of the insanity.
Well, what was fucked about? No, the reason that was fucked up is because Kotaku came out and said there are reports that No Man's Sky is going to be delayed.
Right.
And then everyone said, fuck you, your company, your website's a piece of shit, you're a fucking piece of shit, you're just trying to get clicks, fuck you, you're not a good journalist, I'm gonna fucking murder you because you're saying this game's gonna be delayed. It's not gonna be delayed. There's no fucking way they're gonna delay it. And then Sean Murray came out and said, hey, we're gonna delay this because we
We need more time.
We need more time. And then everyone was like, what the fuck? We trusted you. We fucking sent death threats to this guy. I'm going to murder you.
Yeah. So yeah, there's kind of no winning there. And because the whole thing is just nebulous, there's no formula. There might be people out there who didn't know that No Man's Sky was even a thing until the last bevy of trailers. People who aren't like you and I, who watch all the shows, who check out all the new trailers every week, right? That may have just gotten informed about it at the very end of it and been like, oh, that looks kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, while we were talking, I kind of glanced at Facebook. There's probably some trailers we're going to have to watch after.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
There's already one that I already know of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to say it?
All right.
Death Stranding.
Oh, there's a new Death Stranding?
Yeah.
Don't fuck.
It's got new actors in it, too.
Fuck you, John. You don't tell me while we're in the middle when I can't stop the podcast to go watch Death Stranding.
Suffer!
You
Suffer!
son of a bitch. All right. It's time to go full Micro Machine with these last three questions. Daniel writes in and says, hello, Jeff and John. I don't remember what y'all's level of enthusiasm is for Half-Life, but I'll ask you about Half-Life 3. Has the well for Half-Life 3 been poisoned due to extreme hype, lack of news from Valve, and the changing video game landscape? If Valve was to officially announce a Half-Life 3, would anything they do satisfy the fans that have been waiting for it? What could they do to make it just as great as the previous two in the franchise? Thanks and take care, Daniel. Well, I'll answer the second part of your question first, Daniel. What could they do to live up to the hype of the first, or what could they, what was I going to say? What could they do to try to make it just as great as the previous two in the franchise? I can't answer that because I don't know, because if I knew the answer to that question, I would go make that game and make millions of dollars. Like the first Half-Life was a clever story, but I remember a lot of things like the AI tech on the Marines being very new and different and things. I remember in 2, it being one of the first games that had a shitload. In fact, when you go back and play 2, it seems quaint now. All these physics puzzles, because they were really proud of their little physics engine of like, put boxes on this thing until it raises up the other thing. And then they were really proud of their ability to move between the first person and the driving sequences, which is why I've never beaten Half-Life 2, because I get to the second fan boat area and go, no, I'm tired of driving a boat. I don't want to drive a boat anymore. Fuck your boat. Fuck your Half-Life. I'm out of here. But if they are working on a Half-Life 3, which I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either.
My money was always on potentially VR. That if they built Half-Life 3 from the ground up to be made in VR and spent all the time and money that they needed to make sure that it was the most comfortable, most smooth, most interactive and engaging and clever use of VR experience, it would definitely be catering to a niche market. And I don't think it could be VR only. It would have to, I think people would go burn down their headquarters if they put out Half-Life 3 and you had to have specifically a Vive, specifically the most expensive VR headset in order to be able to play it. But I think that they could do things with just Valve shows a lot of refining, right? They didn't create the first-person shooter genre, but like in Half-Life 2, all of the gravity gun moving stuff around and that stuff, that was all brand new, and we were all just like, what? Zombie Town, where you pick up the saw blades and you're cutting head crab monsters in half. I don't know. What do you think? Are you?
I played Half-Life 1 and 2. I'm not a huge oh my god, Half-Life's the greatest ever, kind of mentality. I just like, oh, they're good games.
Yeah.
It probably helps that I didn't play Half-Life 2 when it first came out because I didn't like the Steam integration of Half-Life Half-Life 2 when it first came out. I said fuck you and fuck that.
Yep.
And didn't play Half-Life 2 until much later in my life after the Steam stopped being bullshit.
Yep.
And it's a good game. Like I said, it's I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is not a bad game. This is good. It's good. It's a good, decent game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just in all honesty, I don't know if there is anything they can do to live up to the hype. And also, I don't think it's ever coming out. I don't think they're working on it. I don't think that's...
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing that's ever going to happen. I think.
Well, that's what you just said brought up another really interesting thought about how hype has changed in the last decade.
Yeah,
is that it used to be that the most anticipated thing out there, the hype levels were reasonable. Like the thing that people were the most excited about, there were reasonable expectations. And not to keep harping on the same thing, but it just got me thinking recently. You go back to No Man's Sky and go, there are people out there that believe this game was going to do everything. Is going to do everything. It was going to be multiplayer and base building and online, and it was going to be engaging and have quests and like a blah blah. And they just believed it was going to have everything. And I was always a little skeptical, just because I don't believe anything can have everything.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like if you put out Half-Life 3 in a reasonable amount of time from when Half-Life 2 came out, you could have made incremental new Steam engine, incremental modifications to the gameplay, add some new mechanics that we hadn't seen before in it, and it probably would have been just fine.
I mean, that's kind of what they were trying to do, I feel like, with the Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, and then, the promise of Half-Life 2, Episode 3.
Sure.
That never came out and is never going to come out. And I will I'm not going to make any promises of what I will do if it ever comes out.
I'm waiting.
But I will fight anyone that tries to tell me that I'm wrong until they actually come out and say, hey, the game's out.
Yeah.
Like, they could say, no, we're still working on Half-Life 3. Gabe Newell could come out wearing a Half-Life 3 t-shirt on the Game Awards while we're talking right now and say Half-Life 3 is being worked on and it is coming out. I will not believe it until it is actually physically out.
I cannot, I so want us to stop this podcast, open up our news feed, and the first thing is the Video Game Awards close with Gabe Newell coming out on stage with a Half-Life 3 shirt, announcing Half-Life 3, and then he played it for 20 minutes on stage to show it was an actual thing. God, please let this be a thing, Dogacles. I want it so badly.
And the sad thing is that by the time this podcast comes out, everyone will know if that actually happened or not.
Yeah. I'm not letting anybody edit that part out.
Yeah.
I mean, if it happens, John, you got to sit in it. You got to sit directly.
Oh, I still won't believe it's coming out until it's actually physically out. Now, he would have to come out on stage, play it for 20 minutes, and then turn around and look at the camera and go, and you can buy it
right now.
And you can buy it on Steam right now for $59.99.
Sure.
Literally, that's what he would have to do.
The craziest thing about the video game industry is that
could happen.
There's like a 1% chance that could actually happen.
Yeah.
There's a 1% chance that Valve has been working on Half-Life 3 for the last 10 years. They just finished it. They decided that the VGAs were their place to spike the competition, and that they actually did that. Now, it's more of a 0.001% chance, honestly.
But there's still a chance.
But we've seen weirder shit happen before, so that. All right, we got. I think we're going to make this our last question because we're already going pretty long this week. So our good friend Ruskles writes in and says, "Hello, Jeff and John. I have a question about time and role-playing. In your last sequential Saturday video for Alan Wake, you got back into reading the manuscripts. I got to realizing that the character of Alan would be too terrified and worried about his wife to take time to read or watch those TV shows, even if he is an author. In a recent episode of Huber Syndrome, I don't know who that is, Huber talked about how he started playing games with a timer like Deus Ex Mankind Divided. He began role-playing someone who has to act fast to save the world instead of someone looking for all the shiny objects, and enjoyed himself immensely. So my question is this: would you prefer getting every bit of content out of your game, or would you want to set yourself a timer and experience a game in a different way than what the devs intended? Love and kisses from Ruskles06. What you got, John?
I think it depends on the game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think there are definitely games that I would love, to play. Like, I actually am, like on a timer, and your reaction is real time, and you're trying to do this as quickly as possible. Like, I'm kind of hoping that that's the way Resident Evil 7 kind of comes off.
Okay.
Is that it's not one of those things where you go, like everything feels like it. You have to do it now, or else you're gonna die.
Sure.
Like that idea can be interesting and can be fun. For a game like Alan Wake, I don't really care because I mean it's. I also like the ability to walk around in the world because that's one of the great things, because I'm not playing a movie where I'm watching someone make all the split-second decisions to do everything all at once.
Sure.
I'm playing something where I can actually stop and walk in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to, I can be an asshole and be like, you know what? This boss is taunting me. I can go over here and look in a corner because I don't care.
Yeah.
And just ignore him for right now, because...
So you feel that sense of time pressure kind of takes away some of your agency because you're so trying to keep ahead of this artificial constraint.
Yeah, but that's why I like video games, is because I can do that. Now there are times when I'll play a game and I'll be like, no, I have to get don't fucking stop and read don't go get the shiny thing off in the distance that I totally see as a collectible, because I'm not here for the collectibles. I'm here to play the game and get and this character would not do that, so I'm gonna do what this character would do.
Sure.
There are times where it feels like I'll give an example. Watch Dogs 2. I'm still playing it.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments where I will play the game and I'll be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go. Like, I'm in the middle of a mission and I see something off on the map, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get that thing real quick, and then I'll continue the mission.
Right.
And then there are some missions where I'm playing like, no, given the severity of the story of this mission, this has to be handled immediately with no distractions, because this character would not let any distraction stop him from doing what he's about to do.
Sure.
It just depends on the moment. It depends on the game. It depends on the story, kind of thing. It's yes, it's good. Sometimes it's not.
I hate artificial time constraints.
Yeah.
I hate them with a fiery passion.
I think what he's asking is not like, should developers put it in the games?
No. Yeah, no, I get that. It's just that I don't know. Okay, let me take that back. It has its time and its place, right?
Yeah.
Because like I've thought of a few places where there are levels in the new Hitman game where I can basically beat the level in about 5 seconds if I want to, and there's a certain kind of weird thrill to being like, all this setup or whatever, and then you're Agent 47, you're just like, open this door, turn on the light switch, open this door, mess with this thing, and then I'm leaving, and you're electrocuted, and I'm out before anybody's even seen anything. But generally speaking, I like to take my time in video games. I always like to take my time and look around and check stuff out. So anytime that a game is rushing me, or anytime that I feel rushed, like, I don't think I would have enjoyed Deus Ex nearly as much as I did if I had felt that I had to keep moving along. Plus, I hate the idea of having a fail state that is based on that reduces the number of mistakes that you're able to make. Like, when you hit that time limit, whatever it is, like, I don't know, I just don't like that. Like, I was actually playing, when I was talking about all the Final Fantasy stuff, I was actually playing Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13 3, right?
Yeah.
Which is I don't know if you've ever played that before, but it's like, it's the end of the world, and there are 13 days before the world ends.
Yeah.
And Lightning has to take care of all this stuff. And I at first really didn't like this mechanic, because the world happens in real time, and you have there's this whole city full of people and subquests and things to do that, like, if you don't get them done at the end of the last day, game is over. So, whatever. But I think they recognize that, and at a certain point they give you tools that let you manipulate that. They'll let you either stop time, or I think that you might even be able to turn it back a little bit. So, like, I think that it's like I went through like 8 of those 13 days just playing the game, like, kind of like really scratchy and nervous about trying to make sure I got all the subquests done. And then I finally got those powers, and I was like, oh, whew, because then I could just keep stopping time and finish out each day to my heart's content, and then move on to the next day when I knew there was nothing left to do on that day. But it really stressed me out. Like, I don't find that sort of stress to be enjoyable. So that's why I don't really usually like artificial timers.
And again, I think he uses artificial timers as an example. I don't think he's meaning that specifically. He's more talking about like your role playing as that character. Like,
sure.
Like, and to go back to Alan Wake, and I don't necessarily agree with his assessment of this, but he's saying that, oh my God, he's worried about his wife. no actual person is going to stop and pick up the manuscript. They're just gonna move forward and try to save their wife. They're gonna frantically do the thing that they're setting out to do. They're not gonna go, oh, here's a piece of paper on the ground. What is this? Oh shit, it's a piece of the manuscript I wrote.
Yeah.
Let me stand here and read it real quick, but to see what it tells me.
Right.
You know, yeah, of course, no one's gonna actually fucking do that. But
it's also a game about a writer going crazy with shadow things, throwing bulldozers and shit at him. You know, like some of that. We go back to that realism question that we had before about like Alan Wake's already in kind of a universe that doesn't make any sense. Like I keep thinking,
yeah, Amanda tells me how you don't understand the game at all.
Why don't you just leave, Alan Wake? Why don't you just leave and call the FBI or something, right? Like, or why would you drink a thing when the lady that gave you a cup of tea is obviously possessed or drugged or a robot or something? Why would you drink that, Alan Wake? Come on, Alan Wake, use your fucking head. I want control of Alan Wake to make him not do those stupid things or to yell at people. I need a renegade option for Alan Wake. That's what I need. I need a screaming renegade option.
But yeah, so I mean, he's not necessarily asking for time limit constraints. He's talking about just role playing as that character. What would that character do in that moment that's not, you know, oh, I'm going to go get the shiny thing over there. It's no, I'm going to focus on this mission. I'm going to do this mission. And, you know, sometimes that can be rewarding in a way. And like I said, like again, using Watch Dogs 2 as an example, because that's what I'm playing right now. There are times where there are story missions where I'm like, no, I have to do this. I have to do this now because of specifically what it is, and I have to focus on this until I get done with this side story or this main mission story or whatever it is. I have to follow it to its end and ignore all other distractions because this is what the character would do.
Yeah.
This character would not go, oh man, this person is, you know, saying crazy shit. I'm gonna go figure out why they're saying this crazy shit. Oh, hey, look over there. I'm gonna go jump this ramp with my car.
Yeah.
You know, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna be like, okay, I need to go figure out why this person is going saying crazy shit. Right. Okay, this is why they're saying it, and this is how I can get them to stop. Okay, I need to go get them to stop that because otherwise it's gonna cause more problems if I just ignore it.
No, I gotcha. I think that I'm just abstract enough that I never really feel enough of a pull.
Yeah. Sometimes, like I said, it just depends on the reason for doing it. Like there are times where, yes, I will like, oh my God, this thing happened. This character would totally focus on doing this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to play as that character. And I'm going to play in the way that I feel like this character would play. And then sometimes there are some missions where I'm like, okay, I gotta go. This guy is doing stupid stuff and he's causing problems, and I gotta go do. You know what? This is fucking stupid, and I know it's important to the game, and I know I need to complete it. But you know what? I got a bunch of selfies to go take, and I want to go do that. So I'm gonna go do that for a little bit, and then I'll come back to this bullshit.
Fair enough. And that's it. That's our show for the week.
Hey.
Yep. mail@rageselect.com is email address. If you have questions to send in, send them in to mail@rageselect.com, and we will answer them. And with that, I think we have to go watch for that Half-Life 3. I think I gotta make a call.